Perfect. We're going to begin tonight with a public hearing to hear oral or written comments on our 2022-2023 budget. So is there anybody from the audience who wishes to make a comment on the proposed budget?
It's on here.
Did we receive any oral or written comments on the budget? Okay. Going once, going twice. All right, well, that was easy, and we'll close that public hearing, and then we're going to open up the regular Board of Trustees meeting for May 16th. It's 7 o'clock. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards?
Here.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Poznanski?
Here.
President Milzon?
Here.
All 7 are present.
We have a quorum. Before we get into the agenda item, I just wanted to, in an effort to always improve, are you going to, there's a little bit of backfeed. Are you turning that volume down?
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, perfect. I thought it was just me. Or I didn't.
There you go.
That's much better. Thank you. Always looking for ways to improve meetings and how efficiently we operate. So per page 8 of our rules of procedure, we had already approved that prior to discussion items on council that each would be considered, the chair shall ask for a motion from the council and then support before discussion. So I'm going to really try and help us stick to that so that we can get through this long, lengthy agenda as efficiently as possible. So if there are no questions on that, then I'm going to move into our consent agenda. In the agenda tonight, you have minutes from April 18th. You have closed session minutes from March 21st that are on the blue paper at your desk, or at your table. You have council bills and a vendor report. Council bills, $25,102.72. And the vendor report reflects $213,169.11. You also have the meeting agenda. And I would like to remove the executive session from the agenda item. So if we could get a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of that item.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the executive session.
Do we have support? Support by Bartholomew. Any other discussion?
I would like to look at the registry, the minutes from the 18th, and I would like to move some of my topics, if possible.
I also have a minute question and a bill question.
All right, so let's take a look at the meeting minutes from April 18th. Are there corrections to that?
I had one just on the last page where it says motion by Edwards to second to pass the resolution to support payment to Highland Park. It was for Macomb County not to make the payment to Highland Park. They were opposed to it, and we were supporting that.
Okay.
Yes, that was one of mine also, so
That's what I was
there's one less.
Okay. So we're going to actually just add the word non-payment.
Yeah, because the way it reads
Okay.
it.
Yes.
in support of what they're
Okay.
doing.
Were there any other corrections to the 18th minutes?
I just wanted to double check. So when we approved the bills, it just says check register report. I just want us to cover all our bases and make sure, do we need to add in there in the, the complete, because not just the check register report.
Are you talking about number 3 on the minutes?
Yes, the last motion, it's on the it's just at the top of the second page, though. And it just says to approve the check register report, so I just want to make sure if it needs to say something in addition, we should put it all in there.
Okay, so it was the checker report, register report, and the vendor report.
Yeah. Because I do believe we did
Correct.
pass all of those.
Yes, we've never not, so. Any other corrections to the 18th? Okay, so we'll make those 2. How about the special meeting from May 3rd? Any discussion or corrections? Okay. The closed session meeting minutes? Discussion, correction? Those are good? Okay. The council bills? Do you have a correction on council bills or the vendor report, Justin?
On the check registry, I just noticed that Audio Century had popped up twice. I flagged that, why we would be paying twice the same amount.
The report, if you check at the dates, started at 4/20. So it was probably just a lag in the report and how it printed. It's double printed those before.
And then just, again, the Chase card services, if we could get I thought we were gonna get a list of that with our packet.
Okay. No, I don't think we said we were going to put that in your packet, but I can certainly bring that back next month, or Clerk Trapp can, for clarification of those agenda or those items on that statement.
Okay, and then the last one, the Plant Moran, just past halfway down the front page for the 16,000. Is that what we paid to have our budget done?
That includes the budget prep and other daily or weekly accounting services that are outside of the budget prep that we account for having a village accountant.
But we hired them for the full year, correct?
I believe the term was 120 days at the last vote.
Yeah, it was just until the next
end of this
fiscal year.
And into July.
Any other questions?
Mine was along with Justin, that I asked you before the meeting if you had the, or if either of you had the credit card statements. So that was my question.
Okay. Was there anything else on the other reports, vendor activity? No? Okay. And then you said you wanted to move something on the agenda?
Yeah, I would just like to move the last item G up. I guess we have to go over some of this other stuff first. I'd just like to cover that before D, please.
So you want to switch D and G?
I think he wants to put G above D.
We can switch them or put G above, it does not matter. Make G D and move everything down, or switch the two,
Yeah,
it doesn't
that's
matter.
fine. We'll just insert G in between C and D. Any other corrections on the agenda? All right, so then I have a motion by Edwards, support by Bartholomew. Does that include all the changes that we just discussed?
Yes.
All right, all in favor? Oh, wait, I have to take a roll call, excuse me, because there's the money.
Edwards,
Yes.
Bartholomew.
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Kosminski.
No?
President Milzon.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Okay, special presentations, we have no special presentations at this time. Correspondence, I just wanted to read one letter that was received from the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks. The letter was addressed to me. It says, Dear President Malzahn, the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks is an organization that promotes and educates Michigan clerks. Through our Michigan Professional Municipal Clerk Certification Program, clerks are recognized for their knowledge of multifaceted clerk's profession. We are pleased to announce that your clerk, Catherine Trapp, has met the program criteria and has attained the prestigious MIPMC certification. Catherine's commitment to education and desire to attain certification clearly defines the commitment to the clerk's profession of your community. On behalf of the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks Board of Directors, I ask that you join us in congratulating Catherine Trapp for this accomplishment and well-deserved recognition. Well done, Catherine.
Congratulations.
All right, public comment. So now on the agenda, public comment. As I stated before, if there's anybody who wishes to offer public comment during most of the agenda items, I will try and remember to invite you to do that. You're welcome to speak on any agenda item now or anything that you wish to bring forward. Hearing none, okay, we're going to move on to our officer reports. My president's report for May 2016. Romeo's petition for annexation was approved 12-1 at the April 28th meeting of the Macomb County Board of Commissioners. I want to take just a moment to clear up some of the misinformation that was on social media leading up to that vote. First, I want to be clear that annexation is allowed by law. This is not and was not a hostile takeover or stealing of township property by Romeo. Romeo was asked by a landowner in Armada Township if he could be allowed to adjust his property line to be included in the village boundaries so that he could obtain public services. In this case, he's seeking sewer, in order to develop his industrial property to its full potential. I emphasize, he came to us. Romeo did not go out and seek or recruit him to do this. Secondly, the property owner, just like all of us Romeo taxpayers, will now pay 2 tax bills, one to the township for their general mill taxes in Armada, minus any special assessments from Armada, and one to the village for our general mill taxes, and any special assessments that would affect his parcel in the future. In this particular instance, the property owner has also agreed, although not obligated, to pay the special assessment for Armada Fire and ALS for at least 5 years, and possibly up to 10 years in the event that the value in his property does not increase, ensuring that Armada Township and their fire department does not lose a single penny in revenue. Third, once the commissioners voted 12-1 in support of Romeo's petition, I immediately extended to Supervisor Paderak the opportunity to service that annexed parcel with water from the Armada infrastructure, which is in a contracted flow agreement with Bruce Township. Mr. Paderak was concerned that the township's investment in that water pipe would not generate the revenue he needed to pay his obligation. So we're giving him an opportunity to meet that demand. Fourth, the county commissioners agreed with the findings of their legal counsel that not only is this annexation process legal, the current property values at $4,000 per acre in Armada versus $150,000 per acre simply across the street in Romeo will see very rapid tax increases, and all of the northern end of Macomb County will benefit from this boundary adjustment with additional tax and job creation. Moving on, Arbor Day was a huge success. Tree Board Chairman David Miller, Leo Hudson, Chris McLeod, Donna Folan, Ruth Heidebrecht, and ex officio trustee Bob Hart. I cannot thank you enough for your time and energy you put into this celebration. These volunteers and myself worked hard together with Joanna Sarah, a parent volunteer from Amanda Moore, and the DDA to make this year's event bigger and better than ever. 4 generous donors sponsored the new trees that were planted, 1 at Amanda Moore, 1 in the Starkweather Garden, 2 at Kezar Library. Thank you as well to the Romeo Lions for providing the refreshment tent and all the serve students that volunteered and put on a great rap skit that was enjoyed by everybody.
It was cute.
Congratulations to Mark Faria and his new State Farm agency. The Chamber of Commerce held a ribbon cutting in honor of his grand opening on May 4th, at which I welcomed him to Romeo and wished him well along with Clerk Trapp. His office is located at 122 South Rawls Street, so if you are in need of insurance, stop in and see Mark and his staff. If you missed coffee and conversation this morning at the Romeo Parks and Rec Center, your next opportunity is July 16th. This is a nice way to join in casual conversation and discuss with your local elected officials your ideas and concerns. Supervisor Philbrook, myself, and Clerk Trapp were on hand this morning and took some great questions about the status of Parks and Rec, as well as water infrastructure in Bruce Township. A quick update on Parks and Rec. Both townships are expected to approve this week a waiver for their legal counsel, since they both retain the same law firm, to review a new draft of the bylaws that Trustee Kopp and Trustee Tremblay compiled to ensure that it meets state law. The draft has not been released for review by public or been provided to my office for input. As always, I continue to hold regular office hours to meet with our property owners and business owners to address their concerns. If you have a concern, compliment, or complaint that you need assistance with, please call my office at 586-752-3565. I'm at extension 3. And I wanted to just add on, and I wasn't sure where it was appropriate, a list of some upcoming events in Romeo. There are still 2 weekends left in May to show off your sidewalk chalk art skills during the DDA's Chalk the Walk event. Thank you, Trustee Poznanski, for putting that chalk out. Look for the buckets of chalk outside the businesses in town and get creative on our sidewalks. Don't forget to snap a picture and submit it to the DDA so we can share it on our social media pages. The Romeo Lions May Fest is next Saturday, May 21st, from noon to 10. Highlights include a classic car show, vendor tables, kids area, and live music. Additional details are on the discoveringromeo.org website. The Romeo VFW will be joining with the Cemetery Board again this year to honor our vets on Memorial Day. Please join us for our annual parade from the Village Park to the Romeo Cemetery on Morton Street, where a memorial ceremony will take place. If you would like to walk in the parade, please join us in the Romeo Park no later than 9:45 a.m. Village-wide garage sales are being held June 9th through June 12th. You can find more details, including a map of the registered addresses for pickup in the Village Hall, on the DDA's website and the Parks and Rec website. Night Under the Stars is slated for June 24th, brought to you by the Chamber of Commerce from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Tempt your senses with food from local Romeo vendors, live music from the Heartbreakers, and celebrate this year's hometown hero, Jesse Nespolio, and visit the Chamber's website for ticket information. That's all I have.
Sounds exciting.
Right? Lots to do,
Yeah.
lots going on in town.
Yeah.
Clerk Trapp, you have a report for us?
Yes, I would like to start with thanking Caroline Miller for stepping in for me at last month's April board meeting when I had my medical emergency. Thank you for taking a minute. The cemetery board met in early April. The one item that was discussed was redoing the roads in there. We do have one engineering proposal, and we are seeking additional ones at this time. And as President Nolzan mentioned, the Memorial Day Parade is coming up. It will begin at 10 a.m. at the Village Park and go straight up to the cemetery. And the cemetery board is looking for volunteers to help place flags on veterans' graves at the cemetery to prepare for the Memorial Day celebration. The list of veterans' names keeps growing every year, so we welcome everyone who would like to help out. The dates for helping out are May 24th and May 25th for placing the flags. Anyone can contact me for more information. And that's all I have right now.
We might have to move that, but it's not very convenient to walk across the room. Sorry about that, Sherry.
Hi, everyone. I just want to let you know that I processed all the water bills for this past quarter, and I'll be working on sending out the delinquent letters to the residents to avoid sending or being transferred the delinquent to tax. Anyone that's in need of water assistance, I do have those resources available, as well as I'll make sure that they're posted on the website. And just a reminder to the residents, when you're writing checks, if you can just please take a few extra seconds and just make sure that everything is completed properly, as I process, or the internal office process, thousands of checks in a given month, and it is kind of challenging to try to get phone numbers and reach out to the residents if there's an error. And are there any questions? Okay, that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any trustee reports this month? Yes, I do. Usually go. Yes, go ahead.
No,
Jesse.
I just, I reached out to Ruth Heidenbrecht again for an update on the Village Park project. She said she'd be out of town. I'm just pulling up her email. That's what I'm looking at. And basically said if any residents wanted to contact her directly, she would rather talk to people offline with that. Declined to provide a updated bank statement with the funds. So that's my update. Thank you.
Trustee Hart, anything to report?
No, thank you.
None there.
Edwards, Bartholomew?
Yes, been in contact with our concrete contractor, and we're looking to, I just marked Prospect Street. I think the letters were sent out, I'm not sure, but,
We're working on it.
okay.
Yep.
And then we're looking at doing Church and Benjamin, following Prospect. We're trying to stay away from any the schools, streets that are, close to the schools, so that we don't interfere with the kids. Then I also met with Alex from Angelica's and looked at his situation, which is definitely a situation as far as ambulance runs go as far as getting the stretcher up onto his property. And so I met with Tim, and they actually went out already and did some ramp work with some asphalt. So I'll stop back by again and see if that's sufficient and go from there.
Good job.
So that's it.
Perfect. Thanks for that.
Who did we secure this year, Nate, for doing the concrete?
Wrap, the same
It's a
contractor,
raffle.
yeah,
I didn't think they were on board this year, but that's good to hear.
yeah.
The rates increased just a little bit,
I would, yeah, I would
as we
assume
would
so.
all imagine. And so next year, we would probably choose to bid that out, but because contractors are in short supply and we're already getting to the install season, I'm just going to suggest that we just leave it as is and
Understand.
get as much done as we possibly can. Trustee Posanski?
Yes, I do have a couple things. First, I want to start off with a congratulations to the new 2022 Peach Queen and runner-up. I'm going to stick with first names so I don't butcher their last names, Madison and Chloe. Congratulations, girls. We know you will represent us fantastically. Participated in another Michigan State University Zoom training again this month. And again, with the Chalk the Walk, I wanted to say a very big thank you to Steph Feldcheck, our resident muralist, who took the time this weekend to do that awesome chalk drawing in Starkweather Alley. It's still kind of there. You can still kind of see it. We did get some pictures of it so you can see that, but she took her time freely for us, and we appreciate that, Steph. Thank you so much. Hosted trustee talk last Wednesday. Had some good conversation with the residents, and next one will be in August. That is it.
Okay, anything from Planning Commission?
Yeah, we had two things on the item, and one was a rezoning request for Whitcomb's. That's going to be tabled. He's going to work with Cassian and some legal terminology through our attorney for specific restrictions on the deed, or restrictions on the property. That property borders residential. So currently it's being used as his sign company. So some of the residents did come and show up, which was great. The property in the past, right next door to it, is multiple. At the time that was zoned industrial, Romeo's boundaries was the railroad tracks or the bypass, but we made some corrections throughout the village, but we hadn't gotten to that part yet, so. We're looking for the restrictions to go on there to keep it multiple zone as opposed to industrial. Because if it's zone industrial, then the property values go down on those residential houses, right? And the second item is, Planning Commission wants this board to look at them getting paid. So, that's the two items. Jim will be in touch with you on that.
Yes, he was. So I asked him to send me a letter on behalf of the Planning Commission, and that we would put it on June's agenda. We're looking to
For the
get paid.
rezoning.
Okay.
They would like $75 stipends for all of the board members for their monthly meetings. And so if anything, we would look to amend the budget for next fiscal year, since there is no funding in it for this year, and begin that in July 1. So I'll put that, I already have that slated for June's agenda.
What about the rezoning? Does planning commission have to send a letter to the council to get that? off
The property owner is going to work with our planner, Cassian, to come up with the verbiage for the restriction on
Okay.
that property. And then it will come back to the planning commission, so we tabled it to that point.
Okay,
And then we'll work on and the property right next door to it, which is also zoned industrial, we're gonna work on contacting those owners, property owners, to rezone that to multiple, which it should be zoned right now. But right now, the property is still currently zoned industrial. So to eliminate the possibility of somebody coming in there and putting an industrial building right
Right.
there in those sites, which would definitely destroy the community.
yep.
Okay, committee reports, the Bruce Sewer Capacity Subcommittee, just a reminder, we're meeting tomorrow at 5:30. I confirmed with Mike from HRC that he's able to make the 5:30 meeting tomorrow,
Where at?
which also worked for Mark. I just assumed we'd meet in the village offices upstairs, so 5:30 tomorrow, and we can move that forward. I did get a request, an email request from Supervisor Philbrook. They have an immediate need to authorize development and is looking for 100,000 gallons added to his contract now while we look to for the rest of his requests. So I told him that we'll talk about it tomorrow night. Okay, unfinished business. We're going to move on to item 9A, St. Clements Water. Mr. Maher is with us this evening, and I thank you for your patience as we worked through this process. Just a bit of background. The item was discussed and tabled at the March 21st Board of Trustees meeting. As a recap of the discussion, Mr. Maher, Director of St. Clements Finance, had previously requested that St. Clement property be allowed to receive its water service from Washington Township. According to Mr. Maher, the boiler system and other equipment currently in place at the location is not operating efficiently due to the water quality. So, can I get a motion?
Yeah, make a motion that we approve the agenda item 9A, the intergovernmental agreement between St. Clements Church, Romeo, and Washington Township.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Bartholomew, we have support by Hart. Okay. Additional discussion. This is a revised contract. The items highlighted in yellow were the content that was added by legal counsel. So thank you for helping me with that, Mark. And I feel pretty confident that this sort of sets a precedent of why people could or could not come on or off our system for water. As you know, we don't want to lose users.
Correct.
And St. Clements is, of course, paying 2 water bills, one to the village and one to Washington Township for this
They're going to
service.
continue to pay.
Correct, yep.
Right.
Mhm.
I just have a question. Since the gentleman indicated that he would pay for the service to come down and then connect it, what's wrong with connecting to our existing Detroit water, which runs over the bypass or the trail?
It's just simply too far. It's too far to bring it from Dickinson is where the nearest, even though that 96-inch main runs through there, Great Lakes Water, and we did request it, will not authorize another tap to go onto that. So the nearest place that they could connect to would be at the Dorsey Dickinson valve, and it's just simply too far.
I think that it's setting up other opportunities for other people to get off of our system.
Yes, but that's why we wanted to set the criterion here of what sort of is that triggering mechanism for the system, the equipment. So if you
Could you explain that a little more, so? everyone-
Sure. Well, since Mark, you drafted it, did you want to highlight?
I
Yeah.
can. The agreement is among 3 parties, the village, St. Clement Church, and actually probably the Archdiocese, and Washington Township. Washington Township will be providing the water through the water it receives from the Great Lakes Water Authority. The village will permit the church to hook up to what is Washington Township's water system. The church is going to pay Washington Township for whatever water it consumes. It's going to be metered. And based on that consumption, the church will also pay the village at the village rates for that water based on that metered consumption. So the church is going to pay essentially twice for the same water. That protects the integrity of the village's system and its bonds and costs that it has to implement and operate the system. It allows the church to receive water from the Great Lakes system as opposed to the village municipal system. The agreement requires the church to pay as it's billed. The township will provide a meter reading to the village, I believe monthly, it might be quarterly, but in any event, whatever its course of operation is, it will provide that metered amount to the church and the village, and the church will have to pay that. Couple things you should know. One is, under normal circumstances, if a resident doesn't pay a water bill, it can be assessed or a lien placed against its property, and it can be collected as part of the property taxes. In the case of the church does not pay property taxes, and so placing a lien against the church property is problematic, if not impossible. That's of a concern. The other concern in that regard is if the village doesn't pay, what do? You'd have to sue the church. That probably legally would be a strong position, but in the court of public opinion, it might not be all that spectacular. When you sue churches, it generally is kind of a tough slog. So the possibility is that collection would be problematic, but that's what agreements are for. People promise to do things. The township promises to provide the water. The village promises to let the connection take place, and the church promises to pay for the water consumed. And if everybody adheres to their promises, we'll all live happily ever after.
Now, is this specifically to this church? I mean,
It's limited specifically to the church. And there's language in the proposed agreement, although it doesn't bind any other user from asking. It doesn't bind Washington Township from coming back. It's not binding on people or other people, but there's specific language in there to strongly discourage a similar situation for other potential users.
So if the church happens to come up for sale, like the Congregational Church, then this deal is just null and void at that point?
No, if the agreement doesn't have, the proposed agreement, I don't believe, has a period of termination.
That was one of my questions, if there was a length.
It does not, and so it would be a perpetual agreement as long as everybody adheres to the terms. And so if the archdiocese chose to sell that property, any purchaser would take subject to the agreement.
So then, if a developer happens to purchase the property, then the developer is using that water system coming to that property.
Correct, or if the church, the archdiocese seeks to sell the property, the archdiocese could come to Washington Township and the village and say, we'd like to terminate this agreement. I don't know what the archdiocese's intentions would be, but absent either all parties rescinding the agreement, it would continue.
Couldn't we have some language in there saying if another occupier happens to come in and this line is severed?
I think it is in there.
No,
He just said it wasn't.
there isn't.
It's not in there.
No,
I
there's
don't
no
see that. I don't
termination
think-
date.
We can put it in there.
I mean, this is specific to the church, which is fine.
It is.
Just if somebody else comes in,
Or even my
Then
thought was,
they shouldn't get that.
does it run
But
with the
if
property? If we say
anything-
it doesn't
if
run with
anything
the property,
happened,
does that take care of it?
They're gonna wanna rectify that because they're paying twice.
well, no, I'm not
gonna-
talking about the church right now, I'm just saying.
In this
God forbid
situation, though,
Something goes like Congregational Church.
if
It's up for sale.
if a developer went in there, he'd be paying
I don't
for,
see the
for
Congregational
water
Church going anywhere for
and
a
sewer in the village at our rate, and paying the, and they wouldn't wanna continue that.
It's just, it's a bad.
There's no advantage and no disadvantage to the agreement. We're still getting paid the same money.
I see what he's saying, and like Mark said, if that next occupant came in and said, hey, I didn't sign this deal, I don't want this deal, and asked to remove it or cancel it, then
Put it-
what
put it back on village
legal
water.
standing do we have to make
Well,
them hook back to village water?
The agreement's enforceable by and against all the parties. And so if somebody breaches the agreement, you would have to sue the party. I mean, one of the other aspects about it, again, relating it to the operation of the municipal system, is that if somebody doesn't pay their bill, I mentioned you could place a lien against the property. The other is to give them notice and shut off the water. The difficulty here is because the water's coming from Great Lakes through the Washington system, you don't have the ability to shut it off. So your remedy is to sue, whether it's the church or a successor. And the agreement, Ms. Poznanski mentioned or asked about, does it run with the land? No, the agreement is among the three parties, the village, the church, and Washington Township.
Does it
So
include all the
wouldn't be-
outbuildings?
It wouldn't be with
It does not specify any buildings, it just specifies the use. So wherever they use village water, they'll be allowed to use the Great Lakes water. It'll just have to be metered and they'll have to pay for it.
Did you have any additional comments that you wanted to offer?
I just wanted to add that it's a 3-inch line, so the aspect of someone, if we sold the property, a development came in, that line isn't sufficient to do much of anything other than what we do with it.
Church,
So,
right.
plus, I do believe it is very specific to us, and I also do believe that it says in the agreement that if the Village of Romeo does get on the Great Lakes system, we transfer back.
Correct, it does.
All right, so we have a motion on the table by Bartholomew, and support by Hart. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
2.
2 opposed? Okay. That was Fowler and Parker.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to item 9B, just a bit of brief background. Romeo Village Council previously approved an intergovernmental agreement providing jurisdictional authority to the Romeo Police Department on the campus of the Romeo Middle School and to dedicate a Romeo police officer as a resource officer on that campus for a period of 4 years. This agreement was modified slightly by the attorney representing the school district, Mr. Garrick. Mark reviewed that and found no issues with the amendments, but obviously it requires council to amend and approve this agreement. The other additional change will be for a period of 1 year with the option to extend it for 3 years to cover that 4-year period. We just wanted to be able to try it for a year.
President Molson, I think you just wanted to,
Oh, you're welcome. All right.
thank you.
Night.
Okay.
Sorry.
So would we,
No, thank you for that.
oh, should we make the motion first?
Yeah, can we get a motion?
I make a motion to approve. Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Parker, we have support by Fowler.
The 1 year with the extension, is that gonna be a yearly? Will we look at it every year, or just after the first year, we're gonna go to another 3? Or is it, we're gonna have to relook at this agreement every year?
It was my understanding that the second, after the first year, we would review it, see how it was working, and then extend it, however everybody felt
Up
was
to 3
appropriate to
years.
do that, up to 3 years, yes.
Okay.
So
All of
this
it?
obviously still needs to pass by Bruce Township. That's on their agenda for Wednesday. This was approved, this version was already approved by the school board.
My question was, all of us are going to review it and reapprove it together in the future? All
Is the extension
collectively?
approved by the board? Yeah, that's a good question.
Is it contingent on all of us or some of?
I would think as long as the terms would remain the same, that you would authorize whoever is the seating president or CEO of the village would be able to execute the additional 3 years.
I'm just wondering, because like the language with the Parks and Rec, if it doesn't pass there, then it doesn't pass here, that sort of stuff. Just want to
It
make
would need to be approved by
Unanimously.
all of the municipalities and the school, but I don't know, it would need to be approved by this board
Got it.
for an extension.
It would, under
Oh, it would?
under the
Okay.
terms and termination, number 2, and this may be where you're going to change the period, but it's initially for 1 year. And then it says the parties may mutually agree in writing to renew this agreement for additional 1-year terms thereafter.
1 year at a time.
So after that first year, if it's going to be extended for another year, or if you change it to 3 years, whatever that next period is going to be, all parties, all
Must
3
agree.
parties would have to agree to it.
Okay.
It can't be done unilaterally by 1 or by 2. It
Okay.
requires all 3 parties to agree.
Yeah, thank you.
So can we change that, the wording there in section 2, the terms, to say 1, 2, 3 years?
If we change it now, then it has
Then
to
it
go
has to
back
go
before the
school.
school board, and it's already in the board packet as presented to Bruce Township tomorrow
So we'll
for
just look at it
for
every year.
Wednesday, right.
So I'll amend my motion to be contingent on this passing by Bruce.
Yes, well, they wouldn't, right, it's a 3-way
Has to.
agreement, so,
Yeah.
but that's fine if you want to have contingent. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Does this go into effect immediately, should it pass, or are we going to wait till beginning of next school year? Do we have thoughts on that?
If it passes in Bruce Township, there are plans to get an officer up there before the end of the school year.
Good.
Okay, up item 9C, the HRC's proposal for wastewater treatment plant generator equipment. Just a bit of quick history. HRC has received has received quotes for a new generator to provide backup power to the Village of Romeo's wastewater treatment facility. This new generator would replace the existing backup generator, which has exceeded its useful life. Quotes of the new generator were solicited from Kohler, Michigan Cat, and Cummins. All three manufacturers provided quotes for the village's considerations. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Support.
We have a motion by Hart, we have support by
Wait,
Posnance.
which one are you going to pick?
Pardon?
Which one are you going to pick?
Oh, the one, it says
It's
the
not
Kohler
to
is-
exceed
okay.
120,000.
Well, just because it says it doesn't mean you
We're
have to tell
supporting
me
the
what
Kohler
it says.
because it's
Yeah,
got a
we have
smaller
some-
footprint
That
and a
does say
bigger gas
Kohler
tank.
in there.
I think we need
Yes.
to have some discussion on this. before
And
we-
that's the one you recommended?
That's the one I recommend and
Okay.
the
Then I-
HRC recommends,
The Kohler,
the Kohler.
so, can you answer some questions? I just, going through some stuff. So I know it did show that the Kohler was providing a larger fuel tank, but also when you go through the literature, it says that that's their capacity for a 24-hour run cycle. So most of these, when you put them in, those gallons, tanks, are made for a 24-hour run cycle. So while it might be cheaper initially at another, from the bottom, from the 600, that's another 174 gallons per day of fuel. So that cost is gonna add up pretty quickly. And then also when you look at the maintenance agreement, that's pretty huge. I know HRC said 5,000. I know that Cummings maintenance deal is at least a 10 grand thing there, and that's, I think, twice a year they come out and do the full maintenance and service on everything, checking the lifters and,
Maintenance service and load test.
yeah.
The company who provided Kohler, Total Energy Systems, is the one we're using now. So we currently have a contract with them for the next year. So that's something.
For a year,
So,
okay.
and, yeah, it gives us a little bit more runtime, and it's got a smaller footprint. They're all pretty close. They're all pretty
So
close.
that's what I was questioning, though, the actual runtime, because I think each one of these tanks are suited for each unit to be a 24-hour runtime. So if we're getting 24 hours out of 600 gallons on the Cummins, and we're gonna, and another 174 gallons a day for
I
the
would have to
Kohler,
look at that. I wasn't
that's
aware of
easily
that.
about $1,000, $1,200 a day, just the current fuel cost.
Yeah, I thought
that-
that
that
was
adds
the
up
total
pretty
of the
quick.
tank. Yeah, I thought that was just the total of the tank. That's what I thought.
Yeah, no, I think they pretty much they size those based on a 24-hour run cycle. I think if you even look at the only one that did actually put that litter in there was the Kohler, and I think it was on the second page, about halfway down, it talks about the fuel tank, and then the fuel runtime approximate 24 hours based on the 774 gallons. So that's pretty much how most of those come, is that tank is designed to give you a 24-hour runtime.
Right, when Kohler didn't put that in there, so I'm not sure if that's what that is or not. With the other two, yes.
Well,
I
the
understand what you're
Kohler,
talking about.
the only one that did say that it was their 24-hour. The other ones didn't include that, but it's kind of assumed. But if we could get that literature, and then the other thing, just the cost of that service. I know you said we got a year currently, but a 5-year at a $10,000 to $15,000 value, it's pretty substantial, I would think.
Well, like I said, they were all pretty close. You're right, they all have a 5-year warranty, but two of them are providing a 5-year maintenance contract. They are not, you're right. But,
And the other stuff I didn't find was with the Kohler and the Cat, what their life expectancy was. I didn't see it with the Cummings. I know Cummings because I've worked with them before. That's like a 35 to 50 year life expectancy on the Cummins unit. So
I don't know what the life expectancy in all of these is. I don't think I read that in there. I would expect that to be pretty close to all of them. They're all top of the line. They're all, the Kohler actually has a John Deere motor in it.
yeah.
So these are all pretty beefy.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we could potentially table to get this information until next month. Run times, and, I mean, I can email you a
I
list.
will say this, I was hoping to get this done now, because it's going to take us quite a while to get these.
Al, a couple minutes ago, you said that this is the generator that you recommend, and who else you said recommended it?
HRC.
HRC.
Did they recommend one of those three, or did they recommend?
They recommended the Kohler based on,
They did, the
Based on-
HRC recommended them?
Based on what?
based on the smaller footprint and what they said was the bigger gas tank. And we would really like to do this now. If it's your choice to go Michigan Cat or Cummins, so be it. But I'd like to get one ordered because it's gonna take a while to get it.
Yeah, I can respect that. I think just based on the operating cost and some of the unknown information on this, I don't think any three of them would be out of line as far as how they produce or how they work. Just the operating cost would be huge. We might be saving 15,000 right now, but if we're down for a week, 15,000 could be gone just based on fuel cost.
Al, in the history, how often do you run that?
Well, it runs every month and then,
No, I know you got to maintain it, but
Every
how
week,
often
actually.
have you run out of power that's got to run in an
couple
emergency?
times a year.
Pardon?
Couple times a year.
Couple days a year?
No, usually it's
Few
an
hours?
hour or two at a time.
I don't think the fuel
We've
in
had the
that,
occasional time where we were out for a day
right.
or so.
If it was running nonstop for a week because catastrophic, it would start to add up.
Right.
I'm ready to vote.
Knock on some wood here.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table by Hart, support by Poznanski. Is there any other discussion? If not, Catherine, would you call a roll for me?
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
President Lozon.
Yes.
Thanks, Al.
Okay, agenda 9D. This was an agenda item that was requested to be added on today's docket by trustee Parker. There was no recommendation, attachments, background, or motion provided from him. So do you have a motion that you're,
Yeah, so a couple months ago, this was tabled to be added back to April's agenda so that we could vote on this, and I somehow got overlooked. So added so that we could finalize this, so it's just not sitting out there and move forward. That was it should have, was supposed to be. But I don't know if we can still add it now that it was supposed to be tabled until the next month, if we can add it and vote on it now.
vote on the amended, I'm not sure what you're, because there's
What
nothing in the
you
packet, so.
You had to propose making the treasurer and clerk appointed positions.
Right, but honestly, it's probably too late. In my opinion, and speaking, with legal counsel, there are already people who are circulating their petitions. If you were going to send it out for a referendum, they would be on the same ballot as the actual positions that are being voted on, so.
So we can just
So at
squash
this
this
time,
and look at it in the future?
yeah,
Okay.
if it wants to
I'm good with
come up
that.
again.
Yeah, no, I thought that was the whole point, was to get it out there and make a vote to.
Well, if there was an appetite to have it done, it didn't seem like it really had the support, and it would have been, are we going to do the clerk, the treasurer, or both? Hopefully in 4 years, it'll be maybe looked at again.
So no board action. Okay, in your packet, item 9E, lawn maintenance RFP. Just a bit of background, the Romeo Village Council issued an RFP on March 22nd. 0 submissions were received within the allotted submission timeframe. During the April Board of Trustees meeting, a motion was passed directing Clerk Trapp to reissue the RFP, which she did. Prior to her reissuing the RFP, I had asked DPW Supervisor Tim Metz to get me some bids for temporary service for Arbor Day and such, and so he actually provided all of these estimates that he solicited, and so it's back for you tonight for your consideration. So,
I'd like to make a motion that we go with RW Services for our lawn maintenance.
Support.
Second that.
okay, so we had a motion by Bartholomew, we had support by Edwards. Any other discussion?
The areas, is that areas they're not doing, or what does that mean?
Like the alley booster station.
There's a few, like, it doesn't look like anyone has a price for every single
Right,
one
they
of
did
those.
not submit prices to those items that we asked for.
So if we go with
This was nice.
our white services, then like the booster station, the alley, parking lot, 32 in Bailey, 32 in Bailey, I was on there twice, and spring cleanup, fall cleanup, those are not included, so then we'll have to provide those ourselves?
The parking lot was for weeding, because there isn't any grass to mow there.
Okay, at the
And-
32.
Right,
okay.
and so I think some of the cemetery clubs, Mr. Hop, and there's another community volunteer that could probably take care of that weeding, but if need be, then we would have to have Ron give us a bid for that. We will need to have the booster station and the alley, well, again, the alley was weeding too, which was just done by some volunteers, so the booster station would need to be mowed. I don't know if he just missed it. Even if you added
Right.
the amounts from the previous column, it would still be he would still be the cheapest bidder at $460 a week.
So the areas that we just have to do those ourselves, stuff that they're not gonna do.
Right, or get a separate price and bring it back for approval.
Who's willing to?
Mhm. Okay, so we have a motion on the table by Bartholomew, supported by Edwards, to award the contract to Our White Services in the amount of $460 a week. Roll call, please.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
President Milzan?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, moving on to unfinished business, item 9F, the pedestrian crosswalk project. Just a bit of history. In June of 2021, Village Council unanimously approved to accept and issue the bid package as prepared by Rowe Engineering for a pedestrian crosswalk project to install at 6 locations within the CBD an epoxy surface treatment across the asphalt and install new ADA compliant curb, gutter, and bump outs. Storm drain repairs are also included in the project at Washington and Lafayette Street. So,
I'll make a motion.
sorry, my recommendation has 2 different motions.
Okay.
Just for clarification, because there are 2 separate expenditures that I want to make sure we get approved. And before you hop in, Nathan, you had at your place table a resolution as drafted by legal counsel.
Yeah.
So we need to approve this resolution, not just make a motion for item number
Okay.
1.
So I make a motion that we approve this resolution as submitted.
Okay.
Support?
Okay, so we have a motion by Bartholomew, we have support by Edwards. Okay, I know I needed a little bit more discussion here, so we had a heart attack moment when the bids were opened. Everybody sees in your packet. We received 2 bids. The project was estimated for a construction cost of $363,199. The low bid that was received was in the amount of $629,832.60. And once I wrapped my head around it, I went, oh my, this project is dead in the water. And then I thought to myself, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on Romeo. This project is just too important for those people coming to our town. And so I gathered the team together. We had a quick conference call. We said, all right, who do we know? We're going to reach out to them and see what we can do. So Paul O'Meara reached out to Brian from SEMCOG. I reached out to John Paul Rea. I reached out to Don Brown. And in a matter of 2 days' time, SEMCOG came back with a new grant amount from $190,000 to $503,000. That's humongous, right? I'm seriously in tears over this. That project is that important. Thank you. Yes. That the county, that SEMCOG, that they think that's this important to this community. It really showcases what SEMCOG's mission is, to ensure that municipalities are investing in this sort of infrastructure, that they would grant us another $300,000 to make this happen. They also reduced our matching amount, which was 35% down to 20%. So what that means for us today And I apologize that you still don't even have the contract from MDOT. They're working on it as fast as they can, but they just haven't gotten it to me yet. So we either need to call a special meeting to approve it or approve the contract, knowing that the numbers are going to be reflective of these numbers that I'm going to read off for you. The overall budget for this project is an increase of $19,416 over what has been approved to this point. You have this green recap sheet from Rowe Professionals, and I can go over those numbers. On page 3, design and construction administration costs. So those are the two numbers from the front. The design fee was $51,800, already previously approved and paid for. The administration of the construction project, $59,450. That was approved at our goals and objectives, but not paid for yet because obviously that work hasn't been done. The construction costs were anticipated to be $102,487. That's the liability from the village side. That has increased $23,479. So the construction cost total is now $125,966. The second part of that motion was for the traffic signal realignment. That was an unanticipated part of the project from MDOT because of the traffic shifts that we have to have at the main intersection in town. They wanted the lights restrung. Originally, that was anticipated to cost about $40,000. Again, went to bat. JP reached out to the road commission and they reduced that, allowing us to use their electrical contractor down to $14,000. So we don't have to pay Rowe Engineering to even engineer it anymore. It's just all going to be included from the county.
Great.
So that brings us to $251,216. So the difference, $70,416. Seems like a big number. There are a couple things that I just wanted to mention that were not included when we took on this project 2 years ago. There are additional storm sewer repairs. Storm sewer repair needs to be fixed at Washington Street out front of Greg Tarr's building. It floods every time there's a rain.
It's horrible.
And there also needs storm sewer repairs at Lafayette, which unfortunately is across the street. So that cost increased this project significantly over what we anticipated it would be. There's also some failing road infrastructure. I know it's a county road, but we're assuming that cost because we're doing the project. So that's part of the other increase in the overall cost. So, with that said.
You mentioned Greg's Tire Place, and they'll have that new restaurant up and running there. There is no sidewalk. I mean, cars just pull right in and out. And I think it ends at the gun shop and then it starts again at Lafayette Street. So what's the point of doing? Since you're doing infrastructure work, what's the point?
I think that's grandfathered. It's been like that forever.
Right.
But you got
They're going to bump that parking back because they're going to do outside seating there. So the cars won't be pulling up to where they used to be. So I'm not sure, honestly, you're correct, there is no sidewalk. People just used to walk across that parking lot. I'm assuming that would remain the same.
Yeah, years ago, the DDA had a plan where we offered, we were changing how Main Street was going to be. That is all private property, and instead of that type of parking, we proposed putting parking that would be on the street. We were going to lose about 4 or 5 parking spots. The Party Store, the Little Caesars, and Mr. Tarr really did not want to lose their private parking spaces, and it is their private parking, and Mr. Clark at the time said it would be a taking if we were to kind of pursue that, so it's private property.
Actually, went in front of the businesses, and it's private.
Yeah.
That's going to be eliminated altogether.
Yeah, it's their property and
Hard to say.
taking that.
But to your point,
And to have a sidewalk with cars coming, 30 feet of sidewalk with cars that can cross it at any point is not a safe way to do it, so.
Separate matter, too.
We tried to be addressed and we came up short.
Yes.
So President Walton, to your point, with those three additional areas that need to be repaired, the way I see it is we have to fix them anyways. They're bad and miles to do it now. It's going to increase the cost of this, but it's stuff we still have to do.
And I remember reading in the letter, the huge part was the ADA compliance that's over on
Yeah.
like Church Street in that area that is,
None of the intersections that are being fixed right now are ADA compliant, with the exception of the main four corners,
Correct.
which the curb is just crumbling there around the brick pavers, even though they have ADA mats to the south side. So
but that's a majority of the cost. It's not the sidewalk crossing. So people are aware of that.
Yeah, that's
It's not the
expensive.
treatment.
Right,
the
it's not the
cross.
epoxy that will be on the asphalt,
Exactly.
it's the curb gutter and ADA.
It's fixing a
Yes.
lot of expensive things that need to be fixed.
Yes. So the contract that you have, Mark did review it. Again, what would change would be on page 9, Exhibit A, where those numbers are. And so that's the part that I'm waiting for the county to give us the updated numbers. And so if the motion still stands for support, if you would just allow me, with Mark's review, to make sure that those numbers match
Copy
what
that.
Roe's calculations are, then we can execute it. If
Sounds good.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Bartholomew with support by Edwards to approve the resolution as drafted by legal counsel, authorizing me to execute the contract with MDOT. Is that correct? All right, could you do a roll call, please?
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
President Mogul.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you to SEMCOG.
yes, thank you.
Yes.
The second part of that.
They believe in us.
Right. The second part of that motion, still on that agenda item, was to approve, thank you, was to approve the $14,000 for the traffic light work. That still needs to be approved, because that's not part of, it's not part of the MDOT contract. It is part of the project cost that I went over, but it is separate from the MDOT
I thought that
contract.
was approved like a month or meeting or two ago.
We did not, because we were going back and forth,
Didn't know how much it was.
how much it was gonna be and what we needed to do.
Thought it was
I'll make a motion to approve the $14,000 for the lighting.
support.
We have a motion by Edwards, support by Hart. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
President Mogul,
Yes?
Poznanski,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Parker,
No.
motion carries 5-2.
I would still like us to look at, though, even though I'm grateful that the cost overruns have, been squashed, I would still like us to consider future planning for this project. It will deteriorate at some point. There is a life to it. So I would just like us to keep that in mind down the road.
Absolutely. And I should note, as part of, that recircling back, trying to figure out a plan to move this project forward, I did reach out to the road commission to see, okay, if we can't do the crosswalks now because it just isn't cost, effective, and we're looking at a ballot initiative and bonding to fix our roads, right? When's the road commission going to look at resurfacing or repaving Van Dyke and St. Clair? And it's not anywhere on their radar, because I thought perhaps we could just feather it in with that. So I know you had expressed some concerns about the treatment being removed when they're going to repair the road, but it's not even in their long-range forecasted plans. That's how not on their radar it is,
Well,
so.
not even so much that. I mean, there is a life to it, and so we should plan for that. That's all.
Agreed. Okay, new business, item 10A. Brief background, Madison Roush, our DDA assistant, is planning an event to be held in downtown Romeo on behalf of the DDA. So Madison, welcome.
Hello.
Share your vision with us for this great, fun, new event.
Thank you all for having me. I don't believe I have met most of you, so hello, nice to meet you. For those of you who do not know, my internship is co-funded by the DDA and the 4-County Community Foundation. In doing so, I thought it would be kind of interesting, as I am part of the pilot program for this internship at partnership, that it would be nice if I could provide a capstone project at the end of my internship. This project, I was thinking to be a 50s themed event in downtown Romeo. So swing dancing, classic cars, caricature artists, lots of movement happening, bringing people together, bringing people dancing together in the streets. So attached in your packet here, I have an outline and timeline. These are rough estimates because things may change due to who gets involved, who's able to get involved. The proposed title of this event will be called Vintage Fest, sticking with our fest themes of Winter Fest.
You guys are so creative. I love that. Good work. Okay.
We love branding. So I am requesting the closure of South Main Street to Newberry. This is the preferred closure depending on what the schedule with the sidewalk project. I have this block to be closed or the following block, which is West St. Clair to Lafayette. It's dependent on where that project starts to take place, even though Newberry to West St. Clair would be the preferred closure. I'm also requesting the closure of North Rawls Street from Church Street to West St. Clair, and then South Rawls Street from West St. Clair to Lafayette. So West St. Clair Street would be open. We would not be touching that road. I would also be requesting West Newberry to the edge of the park, kind of the alleyways surrounding that park, so that's closed off, similar to what we saw at Arbor Day, so we can have classic cars coming in, as well as an antique auction. This event will be partnering with Town Hall. Hello, Jason. I would like to thank you for joining us in planning that antique auction, as well as bringing in some of the classic cars that we will be showing. Also part of that partnership will be with the MIT TV, which will be live streaming that auction and helping to organize that, as they have helped out before. I am also requesting the parking strip in the northeast quadrant, that's where Four Corners is, for food trucks and vendors. As we'll be using the Village Park for mainly classic cars, we need somewhere where people can shop and eat, where we can bring people in right down into downtown. We're asking for that street so vendors can be put up. So also in this outline and timeline is a tentative individual event locations, timeline, and volunteer needs. Again, these may change due to who can get involved, scheduling, all of that. But just some ideas. There will be kid crafts, pie eating contests, vendors, food trucks. I'm hoping to get a refreshment tent, but that is tentative on the Lions. And then from 6 to 10 p.m., we are scheduling for swing dancing in the streets. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is a very large dance community around here. So in your packets, there's a photo page.
Saw that.
This was included in the DDA meeting. But at the bottom right corner, we have groups from Facebook. So the Michigan State University Swing Dancing Community Public Group has 1.2 thousand members. The Swing Dancing in Ann Arbor Community Public Group has 1.8 thousand members. And then Grand Rapids, which is a little bit further off, but we're hoping to draw some of these people in because a lot of these towns are college towns, and college kids are home for the summer. There's nothing like dancing. So that Grand Rapids Original Swing Society Public Group has 10,000 members in it. These will be drawing out dancing communities, vintage car enthusiasts, and just people who want to get out and get together again. So I'm looking for the approval of Vintage Fest for Saturday, July 9th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., including the road closures detailed in the outline and timeline.
Chief, have you had a chance to review the road closures and stuff?
I spoke to Madison about it and told him I need some lead time and I need to know definitely,
Which
The Main
roads?
Street closure, side street closures, those are village owned, that's fine, but I'd have to put in a request to the county for the Main Street closure, so I need to know if it's gonna be the north end or the south end.
On the east end, going off of Tuesday, I see you going all the way down Hollister Street. So, I mean, could you just go right, you want to take advantage of the parking lot, I understand that. We have that alley right there behind the car wash, the two buildings that's got demoed. Could the line be there as opposed to the residential street? Not to inconvenience any of the residents that live on the following street, just east of there.
Where are you looking at?
You have your red line right here going right down to Hollister Street, right?
No, it's not Hollister.
That's it? Oh, that's.
Bailey, okay, I know where
Hollister's
you're
not on here.
looking.
I don't think there's any road closures in the northeast quadrant, right? You're just using the
Well,
parking
That's not
lot?
Hollis.
Yeah, just the parking lot
Yeah,
there.
I'm looking just at, using the
Just
parking
east
lot
of
as
it.
your dividing line. There's a street to the east of that. That's Hollister Street.
No, it's
No.
not. Hollis.
Oh,
No.
Hollister, Dorsey?
Yeah, Dorsey, not Mussey, Dorsey.
Man, I could be something.
Harriet?
Harriet. Yes, Harriet Street. Instead of using Harriet Street, just to the west of there, we just vacated some alleys.
I believe that's just for vendor space, isn't it?
For the, yeah,
I guess what I'm saying is, you can have your parking lot, this is great,
Mm-hmm.
but
Of the North Bailey Park.
to isolate Harriet Street as far as part of your dotted line, that's infringing on residential.
Yeah, it's going
That's
from
North Main, right?
Newberry over to Harriet
Yeah,
and then down.
come just west of there, there's
North
an
Main.
alley.
So Zach, I'm going to step in here and save Madison for a second. So the map that you see with the red outline all around it, that is the central business district boundary. That is not what we're requesting is closed.
Oh,
That's just showing you that's the full boundary. This was in your, the master plan that was approved by the DDA, and then you guys had to approve it. It's the map that's in this plan, and a lot of potential businesses receive a copy of this, and all of our businesses in the downtown get this as well. So this map, so just to clarify, the map that you have, this is the full boundary of the central business district. And then within the map that she printed out, the pink stripes and then the orangish yellow ones, those are the closures she's recommending. So the red outline all around it, that's just showing the central business district boundaries. That is not a closure. Oh my gosh, could you imagine if we closed that whole thing off? We'd have I'm pretty sure we'd have the French Revolution ×2 in our hands if that happened. No, so absolutely not. Just where you see the orange lines.
And the outline mentions South Main, but it's North Main.
Yeah, in the highlighted section right at the
Oh,
top.
yeah, you're right, yeah.
oh,
That should be north, yeah.
Is that like the backup plan?
And also.
And then if Lions Club does agree to do the refreshment, that will be on their property?
we are hoping to have that within the DDA boundaries because we would like to bring more people into the central business district.
Okay.
Kind
Like
of
what we
like
did with
Arbor Day.
Arbor Day.
Yeah.
They came
Right,
downtown.
but what we did with
Arbor.
Arbor Day wasn't like, I don't think that was, don't they have to have a fence or something around, chief?
We'll address that.
Okay,
We'll take care of that.
okay.
Okay, so I want to make a motion to approve the special event permit as submitted for the event to be held on July 9th in downtown Romeo and the Romeo Village Park.
I'll support.
And the DDA board is in support?
Yes. So the letter that is attached in the back is the exact letter that I submitted to the DDA Board of Directors. So that is
Should
what
we
they-
stay minus?
I have a question on that. It
Yes.
said something about 2 potential event outlines?
Yes, so when I submitted this to the DDA Board of Directors, I submitted 2 outlines because I was not sure what I could ask for. I'm an intern. I wanted to make sure that I had 2 different ideas, and I wanted to have a dream and something that might have been more small scale. And the DDA Board of Directors were so gracious and approved my dream.
Yeah,
Well, you
just
did-
let her fly, man, just spread her wings and just let her have at it, right?
So that was an original of outline B that got approved. I wanted to include the original letter so you guys could see what has been my work process so far.
Yeah, that was a nice letter. That was very,
Thank you.
very informative.
What are the green circles, ovals?
So let me turn to that page. So in those sections of the map, I labeled those as kind of a vendor or activity. So it kind of blocks out the map portions. So we have in the top left corner, that's the village park. So the idea for that area is to be holding the auction with town hall, with cars surrounding that area. The circle a little bit further north there, that's the Masonic Lodge. I have yet to talk to them, but this is my thought process, is to use them for kids' crafts as they have helped us before with Winterfest. And they've been gracious enough to offer their space as a rain location. So I thought working with them again would be great to build a stronger partnership.
Well, and keep them in mind, if your first refreshment idea doesn't work, that would be a good possibility.
Absolutely. And they also do have the contained area as well. The green kind of oval there is the parking request that I'm requesting being closed for vendors.
In front of Buscemi's.
Yeah, in front of Buscemi. And then a little bit further down, that's the River of God building. And I am planning on working with them to see if they can allow us to use their space for pie eating contests, because they do have a big open space inside.
And are we going to do any set a preference or precedence, or that's not the word I want, to our local vendors first?
Absolutely.
That we would include them, which we all love food trucks. I love a good food truck, but capitalize on our current, I don't know how you would do it. If
Yeah.
it's cheaper, they get first dibs, I don't know, but.
So we would probably do it the same way that we worked Arbor Day, which is I sent out a mass email to all of our downtown businesses. It was like, if you would love to participate, this is a first come, first served basis because we only had so many spots open in the park. If they came first, they did not have to pay for vendor space. Also, since that was our first year of doing that sort of thing, no one had to pay, but that was preferential to in-house businesses. The only reason that we're looking at food trucks and some outside people coming in is for very specific things like caricature artists. I have reached out to Starkweather to look for local artists, but if that does not come through, we're also researching outside vendors for that. And then we're also looking at food trucks as well, because from Winterfest, we saw that about 5,000 people came into our town that day. And since this event is capitalizing on a few different types of groups, we're hoping that more people come. And with more people, we do want people sitting in our restaurants, but we also want to have that option for people to just grab something and go. But we would prefer local food trucks if possible.
One bit of unsolicited advice, and Glenn and I learned this the hard way from the last Peach Fest pie eating contest: don't do a whole pie.
Okay.
Go with a slice or a little baby pie, because it was brutal. They got about a quarter of the way done, and then we had to call it there. Yeah, put a fork in them, they were done, right? Yeah.
So in our motion, should we, because this permit does include Main, should we say not to include Main Street until?
I think she just wants the option to do
Okay.
either. As the pedestrian crosswalk project was now just developed, we don't know when construction is going to begin. That's her ideal, right, go-to. So unless there's some concerns about not having it on Main Street, I would say we give her her dream and then a contingent option in case construction has begun and she can't do it on Main Street.
Okay. Sounds
So
good.
as presented, it allows us the flexibility, if I may. It allows us the flexibility to work with MDOT and work with the contractor and say, hey, this event is happening on July 9th. Could you possibly do that on next weekend or the weekend beforehand? So we'll work with, if this gets approved tonight, we will absolutely work very closely, as we normally would, even if this event weren't happening. We would work closely with the contractor and the county to make sure that this is, that there isn't construction happening the same weekend.
Right, yeah, that just concerned me though, that if they push it, that's Peach Fest now down there. We wouldn't want them to ask them to push it farther down into July.
No, what she's referring to is like, could they start, if they're going to start construction July 5th or 6th, start at Washington and Lafayette and not do the northern part?
Got it, okay.
So that her event can take place. Because they are going to work in segments, through the pedestrian crosswalk project. They're not doing all of them at one time.
Yes, and speaking with President Malzahn and working with, just kind of trying to make this thing happen that you guys just approved, thank you so much for doing that. There should only be, if I remember correctly, there should only be one weekend where they'll actually be doing work downtown on one of the more complicated crosswalk sections. So that, we just want to make sure that section doesn't happen on the same weekend. So that's it. That's all we're looking at doing. And if this impeded that, we will absolutely modify this event to make sure that that is not, does not affect that, yeah.
Okay, so you have a motion by myself and support by Hart. Any other discussion?
Sounds
Audience, any questions? All right.
Have we reached out, with Bruce Fire? They are aware of all the closures and.
As part of the permit that travels, yep. Mhm.
Yep. Once you guys
That'll be
approve it.
included. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, dream
You're
away.
doing a good job,
Dreamer.
Madison.
Thank you all.
Very
Perfect.
good job.
Have at it.
Moving on, new business, item 10B. The parking signs in all 4 quadrants are faded to the point of being unreadable or non-existent. As such, the DDA is seeking to change and update parking signage on Main Street. In addition, the DDA is requesting that the alley behind the Douglas House, which is 228 North Main Street, be converted to a one-way with a do not enter sign posted. So that would be entering into, between the carriage barn and Buscemi's, would be coming southbound. So off of Newberry into the parking lot. That will accommodate anybody who was traveling northbound on Van Dyke with the alley closure. Now that they can't turn into that quadrant, they could come around the block at Newberry and then still get in and grab their slice of pizza or pick up their Thai food or, yeah,
I
anything.
make the motion
in
to
that quadrant.
support this sign replacement and the one-way.
Support?
So that was a motion by Poznanski, with support by Bartholomew. Is there any other discussion?
Just a quick question. For changing the direction of the road, did you just put a sign on there and that's it, or is there anything else that has to be done?
Couple signs.
Just sign it?
It's a very good question, Dan. Do you have,
I believe
Just-
any one-way street would have to be in the ordinance, Mark. You should be able to do that by resolution, or do we have our streets? I may have to come back with a proposed ordinance. I thought we had it set up in our ordinances where you could designate, for instance, fire lanes and things like that. One way you control the traffic by resolution. But let me check that. If it requires an ordinance, I'll come back and with a proposed ordinance at the June meeting.
okay. Elizabeth, did you want to expound on any of the packet information?
Sure. So this is our phase 1 through the parking study committee from the DDA. And, as you see from your packets, and I need to have Madison help me with some of my presentations. She does a way better job than mine are with my handwriting. But we're looking, all of the signage on Main Street within our central business district, you can barely read the parking signs. They're so faded, you'd have to get real close to them to see that it says 3-hour parking limit, so you don't even see that, right? So we're requesting to change it from, and the DDA board already approved this pending your approval, to change them from a 3-hour parking that you can't read currently, to 2-hour, and then in 3 of the quadrants, having 2 20-minute parking spots on the bookends on each of those. So when you have the grab and go situations or takeout, and by the way, released today, we have a shopping guide and a dining guide that's all over downtown. So on there, it's designated where you can do grab and go, where you can do pickup. And so those parking spots are really reserved for people who can just quickly go in and out. And then, of course, the one-way, of course, what Mr. Clark just said, behind the Douglas House, which is the chamber building, is we're trying to prevent another tragedy from happening like what happened next to Ace Hardware, right? We don't want another situation to happen that forces you as a board to make that decision after a tragedy. The other thing is, too, is we're getting ready to close down that one-way that was approved last month. That'll actually be happening effective Wednesday, so I'm excited about that. Right next to Shell, between Shell and MJC Marketplace. So by that turning into by that being closed off, having a one-way behind the Douglas House just makes sense logistically, how to get into that space and get out of it and
There's
whatnot.
only room for one car to go down there anyway.
Absolutely. So the last thing you want to see, I mean, people on that one-way, they still were,
All the time.
last week when I was in there measuring stuff off, they're coming, I'm like, ooh, it's a one-way, don't come through here. Yeah, does that make sense? Is there any other questions on that? And this is our phase one. The next thing that will come back to you is going to deal with some parking spaces and whatnot, but this is a start. If you can't read the parking signs on Main Street, why would we mess with the parking lots, right? This is a perfect place to start. And in good faith, I recommended to the DDA board that we fund the purchase of the actual signs. Not that that's a precedence that I want to set, and I have 2 DDA board members on your board right now, and I'm sure you both would appreciate that. We're not suggesting that we continue to just pay for every village sign, because it's not really the DDA's responsibility to do that. But we're saying, in good faith, we want to move forward to change this. We need to change the culture, change the way people see parking, and move forward with conversation, right? Because it all starts with that.
Yeah.
So our expense is having the DPW install.
Right.
So they're purchasing the signs, our DPWs.
And then if there's anything else we have to do, like changing the time from 3 hours to 2 hours, we can just come back next, you'll order the signs, and then we can make the resolution.
That's part of the motion tonight.
For tonight.
To make those changes.
From 3 to 2, and to
Probably
include
the
6 20-minute signs.
Okay.
That was part of the package.
So it's just the one way that's outstanding?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Which we can even approve, making it a one-way, but if we have to bring back a resolution or an ordinance change
Okay.
to follow next month, we
That's fine.
certainly can do that. I don't think we have to table this pending that. We
Correct.
can just make it contingent.
And by the way, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, you can act on it, it's just if a formal ordinance is required, you would have to subsequently adopt it. But that's more ministerial, depending on what you do tonight.
And just an additional note, all 9 businesses in the northeast quadrant are completely in support of this in regards to the one-way and also that alley closure as well,
Good.
so.
Good to hear.
I guess just to paint a map for my northbound, the alley is closed, so
Yes.
you gotta go to Newberry and then down to Bailey and back south to get in, that would be the way.
Well, not all the way to Bailey.
No, actually, well, that's a good question, Justin. No, you can actually, you can enter it from Bailey, you can enter it from East
There's
St.
the
Clair.
alley, though.
You
Yeah,
can
so if
enter
you're headed
it,
northbound on Van Dyke, the alley by the gas station is gonna be closed for the summer.
until
You gotta go
November
to
1st.
Newberry, and then back over to Bailey and
Not to
back
Bailey,
south.
though. You
But
can
you'd be
get
able
in
to
the
take
alley.
You can, the one-way alley right behind the Douglas
One-way
House,
alley
which
right
is the
behind
Chamber
the
building.
There's a
The old
halfway
barn.
to Bailey.
The old barn
There's an
right
alley,
there.
that's what we're talking about, making one way.
So you'd only have to go
Yeah,
north on the street.
Oh, so it would be one way in, not one way out?
Right.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
one
seeing
way
it
in.
reversed.
So if you,
Okay.
picture the alley right behind the Douglas House, which is also commonly known as the Chamber Building, right?
Yeah.
So picture that alleyway in the future, if you should approve this tonight, would be the same way as the alleyway next to the Ace Hardware store in between the cleaners and Ace Hardware. That used to be a double way until there was a tragedy about, I don't know what, 10 years ago, something like that.
Or like the one we're closing down, it's one way in.
It's just one way in.
So it's in off of Newberry.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
correct.
All right.
Yep, correct.
I thought it was reversing.
No, that would not make sense at all. No, I'm glad you clarified that. That's a good question.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Poznanski. We had support by Bartholomew. Can we just amend that to be contingent on
Absolutely.
on an ordinance? It's Megan's motion, so it just,
Well, I don't think that's what Mark was saying. It doesn't need to be contingent. It can still happen, and if it needs to change, he'll bring that back next month.
Well, or if you choose to approve it, whatever action you take, if you choose to approve it and it requires an ordinance, I'll bring back an ordinance in June. If it doesn't, then
Yeah, so
I
no, I
will
would move to
come
just keep it the same.
empty-handed on that issue.
thank you for clarifying that. Okay,
So then we would just wait to install the one-ways until we get clarification on that? Okay,
yeah, because there would be a publication timeframe, yeah.
okay.
Any other discussion? Any input from the public?
I just have a question to help me understand. So if we go from, I remember when the 3-hour parking started, but if we go from 3 hours to 2 hours, aren't we losing people who can spend time downtown? Because now we're limiting them, they've got to move their car? Like, help me understand how that helps our downtown if we're telling people now you can only park for 2 hours and not 3, and sometimes it takes more than 2 hours to get the others.
That's a really good question. It also includes enforcement, so without going into that, into great deal, you'd have to have enforcement to enforce a 2-hour, a 3-hour, a 4-hour, a 10-hour, whatever it is, right? So read into that if you can, just a smidge. But we also are working on other parking spaces within all 4 quadrants, which will be phase 2, that will be coming back to you guys, back to the board within about 3 months, to expand other parking spaces within the village, to include private businesses that are interested in doing shared parking spaces with the village. The other thing is, honestly, to answer your question is, one of the suppliers, they don't even supply 3-hour anymore, they only supply 2-hour signs. So we have to have them specially made, actually, to have a 3-hour parking sign as opposed to a 2-hour. So the industry is leading to a 2-hour versus a 3.
I think it's,
Okay, and that's fine, what the industry does, but I'm more concerned about our downtown.
For sure.
So, and that was my next question, who enforces it, so I get that. Does it come across, I guess until people get used to it, does it come across as, I want to say unfriendly or unwelcoming?
That's a good, no, that's a really good point,
Like,
yeah.
in 2 hours, I want to be here more than 2 hours. I can't park here because I know I want to wander the streets for 3 hours.
I just had that experience. I was over in Pontiac for an event a couple weeks ago. And what happened is, in the middle of the event, I was like, ooh, I probably should pay attention to my parking. I think it just makes you more aware of what your parking situation is, and then you act on that. You know, I mean, if you go to DC, if you go to St. Louis, if you go to Lansing, if you go to, you know, Ann Arbor, wherever, you pay attention to what the parking situation is, and you act accordingly.
Have we purchased these signs already?
No, not necessarily, no.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Have we purchased these signs already?
Oh, no, I can't purchase them until you guys say yes.
How much extra would it cost to get 3-hour parking signs?
That's a great question, I don't know.
well, in support of the 2-hour, I feel as if when people see 3-hour, they think, we could just stay here all day. You know, who's going to know 3 hours is a long time? That's if they choose not to find a spot where they can stay for more than 2 or 3 hours. But having the 2-hour sign just lets people know these particular spots are for, if you're going to go in and have dinner, fine, but they're not all-day parking spots. That's kind of what I'm.
Which is sort of an issue right now. Yeah, where people will just park, because you can't even read that it
Right,
actually
some you
says
can't
3
read, so
hours,
you
right? You
can't
can't even
enforce
read that, so, you know, I can just park however I want. Honestly, one of the 4 quadrants doesn't even have any signage that even says fated 3 hours, right? So, you know, there's a mentor of mine several years ago who was talking about his staff, and he said, if I don't allow them the opportunity to try something and fail, what kind of leader am I? So, we try it. What if it happens in 6 months? Social media goes nuts, and people are like, 2 hours, this is terrible. What is Romeo thinking? We changed the signs out. Not a big deal. I mean, did we spend a little money on 2-hour signs? Absolutely, but we tried something. Because it might succeed. We won't know unless we try it. And right now, faded signs don't work, and they show that we are not very forward-thinking or paying attention to the fact that our signs are so faded people can't even read them. Yeah.
So what is the goal of the 2-hour signs? Help me understand.
So people can read to see what the limits are, so they know like, oh, okay, if I'm going to come for dinner, I can park here, but I can't park in the 20-minute spot, right? Or maybe I park in another spot. All we can do is try. Parking is always an issue, no matter where you live. You go to Rochester, and if you choose to go down to Rochester and you go to the cake place, or you go to Cruise and Mirror or wherever, you think about parking before you leave. In Romeo, you don't have to think about parking before you show up. You just park wherever you want to. And we're trying to change the culture. And we got to start somewhere. And so this is what we're trying to do, is to start somewhere.
And
So
those
there
are,
will be alternative parking then?
There currently is
Other than 2 hours?
Absolutely, yeah. The parking behind, for example, she's got a great, do you want to like come and be on one of my committees? Because I got room Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. So that's a great question. So behind Youngers and the Office Pub, those are all 3-hour. The village parking behind the Shell gas station and in front of Four Corners Diner, that's all 3-hour parking. The parking lot, where if everybody saw the Shaner, the Shaner roofing trucks all lined up last week, there's no parking limit over there. There's no parking limit on Newberry. There's a lot of, if you want to know about all the parking, I can show you, I got lots of pictures. But there's a lot of spaces where you can park where there's no time limits whatsoever.
So the 2 hours is just right there on Main Street?
Correct, only, yes, that's a great question. Only right on Main Street.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep, yes.
Thank you.
Is there a way to do a study? I know a meeting or two ago, you talked about, I think when you were, about Winterfest, and you were talking about the pings on phones and how many people were coming to town and leaving. Is there a way to use that and see the average length of time?
Oh my
Coming
gosh,
and going?
Justin, I'm so glad you said that, because you know what it is? It's 108 minutes. So just under 2 hours. Thank you for saying that. Yes, I did. It's 108 minutes, and that was just, that data was just read a couple months ago from the county. Yeah, so there you go. That's the average is 108 minutes, so well under 2 hours. But we want to expand that. We want people to stay longer so they spend more money.
Will each 20-minute spot have its own sign right there at that?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Mhm.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Posanski, we had support by Bartholomew.
If I may,
Oh, okay.
just in case it informs your decision-making, you currently in your ordinances have a section that has time restrictions, and so it is provided by ordinance, not resolution, and it's on North and South Main Street in the Central Business District, and it says, "No person shall park any vehicle on North or South Main Street in the Central Business District, downtown development area of the village for more than 3 hours." And so if you're gonna change it to 2 hours, I think you have to change your ordinance. I think that because you can only amend an ordinance with an ordinance.
Can you put as posted, because we have 20-minute parking that they're proposing? So
Well,
there's-
you can change the ordinance. All I'm saying to
No, I'm just
implement,
saying, would that be appropriate, the ordinance as posted?
You'll need to account for the 20-minute and the 2-hour.
what I'm saying is you can do whatever you want to do, but whatever you do has to be by ordinance because.
Right, but the ordinance stating the
Yes, you can
fact
do whatever
as,
you want.
as posted, then we don't have to go back and change anything.
Yeah.
We just,
Well, then you
We have
have to change the ordinance because it's.
one
already-
time, and then we just
Yeah.
change the
Yeah,
signs.
that's right, that's what
Right.
it says.
Okay,
Okay, so
that's how I would do it, I wouldn't change it to 2
you're
hours.
employed for
is
another
what I'm
week,
saying.
Mark, and as you draft another ordinance, we'll bring it back in June.
But bring it
Okay.
as,
Okay.
as posted though, instead of coming
Right,
back with 2
exactly.
hours, that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason I'm saying
What I'll
that.
probably recommend is that you do it as may be determined by the council by resolution from time to time.
Right, and that's what he's saying,
Right.
without putting a specific
Right.
time frame, because that way we're just,
Yep.
whatever we,
So should we need to move it back to 3, then we're not changing
the
it?
Correct.
ordinance again, yeah,
Yep.
okay. All right, any other discussion? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm not opposed, I did have one more question. If we're gonna change this, the enforcement aspect of it, is that something that we're ready to do?
No, Justin, that would probably be in phase 3 or 4, which has not been developed yet.
Okay.
That would require additional funding for said enforcement. Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right, moving on, item 10C, our fiscal year 22-23 budget. Just a bit of background, the Board of Trustees held a workshop on May 3rd to review and request amendments, information on the draft budget as prepared by Plant Moran. No objections were heard at the conclusion of the workshop, therefore the final budget was prepared and is being presented for adoption this evening.
I'll make the
That-
motion to
that,
approve and adopt the 22-23 budget as presented.
Support? Oh, Matt won.
Right.
That statement made by our president was incorrect. At the time, at the May 3rd meeting, objections were coming out, but there were so combative reactions that I just called motion to adjourn. I mean, Justin had great questions, so did Megan have great questions. My big theory here was we're spending $122,000 of taxpayer monies to supplement, to do garbage removal in the Central Business District. We're spending taxpayer dollars. Now, I understand the retail business pays taxes to collect money. Yeah, you pay taxes, that's fine. But you make money off the residents and non-residents in the village of Romeo. But now you're asking the residents to help support your garbage removal. That's completely wrong. $122,000 is wrong. So
Yeah, I don't even know what, that's.
Your?
Where that's coming from.
Who's
That's
your?
not
It's-
accurate at all.
It's very
not.
accurate, right here.
No, it's not accurate,
No.
Zach.
I'm looking at it right here.
Not what was
There's an
stated
extra
at all.
money that is coming in that they're paying that is
They're not getting the service.
earmarked for that they're not getting the service. That's what's happening.
But like we discussed though also, it does not include every business that's paying into that. So if we can't include every
should.
business,
Every-
it should, but it's not. So now we're doing to those other businesses the same thing that you're saying the residents are doing to businesses to benefit a few businesses.
We have it in the budget for how much we're collecting, so we put the full budget amount that we're collecting, which, what else can you do? If that is what we're collecting.
The budget
That's
amount
what's
was
in the budget. Can I finish?
$245,000.
And I think we need to, we talked about, we discussed this at a meeting, and nobody said anything. Now we're here,
Oh, we started
and now
saying
you guys bring this up. Was it not a big enough audience?
saying
It was it because
What
it
are you
wasn't
talking
being
about? We
taken?
brought it up, he
All
was
right,
trying to
wait a
get
minute,
numbers
wait a
back to
minute,
us on
wait a minute.
individual costs.
All right.
Okay.
What
but
do you
the-
mean we didn't talk
but the
about it? I'm
case-
tired of hearing
Okay.
that. You guys, we didn't talk about it, there's no
Okay.
objections.
The
This is
case-
all lies.
All right, listen. The commercial, what we had discussed, and this we have come back, is that all of the businesses would be able to use curb carts like we have. Every business, if they're paying for that, they can do a curb cart. If they need more, they need a dumpster or whatever, then that it would be on them. That would be fair. We need to know how much that's gonna cost. That won't work for our budget number. Now, we need to pass a budget. So what we budget is 100% of the money we're collecting, that's what's in the budget. I can't see how we'd have a different number in there.
You created a whole new line item.
And our accountants, we're right here. I mean,
You added that right in, you added that right in. The normal budget was $245,000 plus.
it has to be pulled out
Zach, let me clarify that.
because that's how it's
You're
being
correct.
collected.
It's, as long as any taxpayer dollars is going towards essential businesses.
It isn't.
It isn't.
It's wrong.
That's-
It's not, you're
It
right.
isn't.
So this.
But it's not.
This increase in the budget amount is
There
not
is no
using any
increase.
taxpayer
I thought it
dollars
was
at all.
getting
It
supplemented.
isn't.
It's not using any
It's how
taxpayer
much
dollars.
is being collected for that, and it has to be spent for that.
Smoke and
And if we
mirrors.
don't spend it for that,
And how much was being supplemented from the general fund?
none.
That's not what was, that was
No,
not what
we're
was proposed
collecting
at the
more.
last meeting.
We are, the last meeting, we're collecting more than what we're paying for that service.
Yep, and to provide to the central business district, the general fund was gonna be supplementing that.
Not at all.
No.
I don't know.
I think it was $5,000-6,000.
Brian is here tonight, and he can clarify that, because it's his firm that drafted the budget. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but clearly, there's
Thank you
two
for
different
being here.
takeaways,
Please, put him
right?
on the spot.
And so if you could just clarify for everybody exactly why we made that change, and having its own line item created.
So the,
Brian, do you want to step up here, and then I can speak after you?
Sure.
Good evening. So the rubbish portion of the millage previously was in the general fund. And so now it has been segregated. And the budgeted expenditures are a dollar for dollar match with the revenue that's being generated by the millage. The decision to provide service to a business, two businesses, all the businesses, that is a separate decision that comes after the budget is adopted. By adopting the budget as it's prepared, all you're saying is we are approving spending the millage money on rubbish service. Now, whether it's everybody, whether it's some of the businesses, that's still up to the council to decide who gets service and when they get service. But the budget as written is just saying we're taking exactly the amount of money coming in and we're going to spend exactly that amount of money going out on providing service.
Based on the millage.
Yeah, and if you decide that every single business in the village ends up with service, that cost, we don't know yet what that is. Before you decide to give that service to everyone, you'll need us to give you that information, which we still would have to work with the garbage vendor to give us that information. It may come back that it costs more than what your millage is providing. And you may then decide to either subsidize it with general fund money, which sir, you're saying you're against. But that's not been being decided with this budget. You may also then decide, as an alternative, not everyone will receive the service because we don't want to take general fund money. We only want to spend up to the point that the rubbish millage is generating. So the conversation that you're having is a good one, but I think it's for a later date when you have the information in front of you as to what it costs per business, per bin, per rolly cart, per whatever, but that's not available yet. All this is doing is saying we're going to spend rubbish money on rubbish.
And I know that we're not approving or having a public hearing on the tax mill and the levy, but since there are audience members here, and we are approving a budget that takes into account what we discussed at our budget and workshop, could you just reiterate why that line item was created the way that it was and why we reduced the general mills?
Right, so.
Why had to do that?
So previously, all of the millage money for both general operating and rubbish, all together in the general fund. By separating it out, it's providing more transparency as to what taxpayers are paying for. Rubbish millage money, by law, can only go toward providing rubbish service. And so by having a separate fund, if the rubbish millage generates a surplus after all expenses are paid, that surplus will be restricted for use in future years to only go toward rubbish service, instead of it being within the general fund where it could be confused as being unrestricted for a different purpose.
Yep, thank you. I'm so glad you're here for the second meeting.
Zach, do you understand that? That it's not a separate line item that we just created? I mean, technically, we did just create it, but.
Yes, because he made that very clear last time.
Well, we took it out of
But it
general
was
fund.
incorrect being in there.
He's not.
Well,
Wait, he's not correct, is that what you said?
No. He's correct in what he said.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you understood it, because what you started with wasn't correct.
remember, this is,
What I said is correct, as he just said.
For clarification, Bill, when we went over this last time, did we not discuss supplementing? And I thought that number was around $5,000 or $6,000 was the estimated supplement from.
That was
the
before
general-
we had the final property tax revenue amount per what the taxable value was coming from the county.
Oh.
Remember, it changed within the next 3 or so days after that meeting?
Yes.
So we did discuss it.
There was another 5,000 or 6,000 that was going to have to come
But
from
you're
general
talking about
fund in order for this to
100-something
balance.
thousand. That's not.
But that
But
is
it-
also
what it was.
based on our current contract, which I think was one of the lower bids at that time when that was bid out.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table, support by Hart, support by Edwards, to approve the fiscal year 2022-23 budget as presented. Is
The
there
only
any?
other thing I was looking for with this is I didn't see is basically the budget message that should be attached with everything that shows a current difference between the current fiscal year and this year and the explanation for that based on our ordinance.
I think you're referring to the tax levy,
No, I'm
which,
talking about the budget transmittal, the two council, 2.424, I think it was. That says we were supposed to have an explanation for any line item difference based on the current fiscal year budget.
I'm sorry, I'm not following the question.
I can pull it up real quick. I think it's under ordinances, the one that I could pull up. Section 2, 424, transmittal to councils, item B, a budget message which shall explain the reason for increase or decrease in the budget item compared to the current fiscal year, the policy of the chief administrative officer as it relates to the important budgetary item, and so on.
so I think you're talking about an amendment. When?
No, it's talking about the budget transmittal to council for approval.
Right, which is what we do when we amend the budget. Every quarter, we bring that memo. and
No,
we
it talks about for the approval by May 15th of each year.
Mark, do you have any, are we talking two separate things here? Is it,
I'm not sure. I don't know from what source Mr. Parker is getting.
Unless the website's off, I'm not sure, because I don't have a proper
Is that under the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act? What statutory, or is that a local, the village?
That's ours. That's
the village ordinances.
Village
Okay.
ordinance.
All right.
Section 2424, under transmittal to council. No later than May 15th of each year, the fiscal officer shall transmit the budget to the council. The budget shall be accompanied by the following A and B.
Okay, then let's take a look. I happen to have my Jiffy ordinance book with me, and let's take a look.
We need some music softly playing. Anybody wanna how long? I don't know.
I just
What-
like to mention that, like he explained it last time, this is a living document. It's not going to be the same forever, it's going to have changes. What we're doing tonight is just passing this so that we can move forward with any changes we may have to make in the future.
And this, when we got on, I don't know if you noticed on Friday or Monday, even in a couple hours ago, we wouldn't all be waiting. We could have maybe an answer.
So,
Go ahead,
no,
no.
please go ahead.
In your ordinances, it's in Article 1, and the provision is 2-424. No later than May 15th of each year, the fiscal officer shall transmit the budget to the council. The budget shall be accompanied by the following: a draft resolution for adoption by the council consistent with the budget, and it shall set forth the anticipated revenue, requested expenditure authority for the ensuing fiscal year in such form and in such detail deemed appropriate by the chief administrative officer, which is the president. And it has to be consistent with the uniform chart of accounts. A budget message shall explain the reasons for increases or decreases. So I suppose if you don't have any increases or decreases, you don't need an explanation. I don't know whether you do have increases or decreases. And the policy of the chief administrative officer as it relates to important budgetary items. So it does require this budget message, if you will. And if that's not part of your proposed resolution, I think you can still adopt your budget, but you are entitled to, because the language is mandatory, to this budget message. And then you have to, not later than June 30, the council shall pass a resolution providing the authority to make expenditures and incur obligations on behalf of the village, which is your budget. So I guess the best practice, or perhaps the better practice, would have the budget message to accompany the proposed budget, but I don't see where one has to, where one is dependent on the other. I'm just looking quickly.
If my memory serves, that has always been drafted because we've typically done them together with the tax levy and the millage rates, which were not prepared based on the state of Michigan releasing that information in order for Catherine to get the notice for publication taken care of. So we decided that we were going to do them separate. And I believe that transmittal that you're referring to was typically included with the tax levy, the L-4029 forms.
And
Yes.
that, I don't question that. It does say that, the ordinance does say the budget message has to be by May 15th, and it's not tied to the millage. What you just said makes sense, that logically, that the levy, the tax levy is going to tell you how much money you're going to receive. I mean, arguably, you're going to, if you adopt a budget tonight, I have to be careful here. What happens if your projected millages come in that don't support your budget?
Well, they do.
They do now.
But we didn't have time to publish the notification pending the release of those. So, yes.
So when I was here last month, we didn't have final taxable value numbers from the county. So we did this whole presentation. Here are the numbers that we have as of today. which have since we have now got the correct numbers from the county, it's been updated within the budget packet. I believe, do you have, within your council packet, do you have revised budget to actuals for, by fund, the current budget that you are presumably voting on? Is there a similar packet to this?
What does
that
your
council's
date say?
received?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect. I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Did Danielle print it on 427?
That is correct.
Perfect.
I mean,
So these are the most up-to-date numbers. This is based on the taxable values as provided by Macomb County. The millage itself is what is missing from this packet,
Correct.
which will then be communicated, but it supports, we already know, it supports the tax numbers that are included in this document.
And I'm not saying you can't do this, it just, I'll offer a suggestion for your consideration. It seems a little bit of the cart before the horse, where you adopt a budget, but you haven't adopted or approved your millages that will be collected to support the budget. Now, again, I think you can do it that way, it just seems a little backward.
I agree with you that it's not the according to Hoyle right process. And I will apologize on behalf of my team member who's out with COVID as to why we probably don't have all of this buttoned down tonight. But that is what should happen. You should be able to then do the math of millage times taxable value equals that
And here's
property
your
tax
budget.
number.
Right.
And here's all the expenses that are gonna then be paid from that millage amount.
Okay, is there any other discussion, any input from the public on the proposed budget? All right, we have a motion on the table by Hart, we have support by Edwards. Can you call the roll, please?
Hart,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
President Melton,
Yes?
Parker,
No.
Poznanski.
No.
Motion carries 4-3.
Okay. Let's move on. We moved up item 10G, which was the building code enforcement, which was an item added by trustee Parker. He did include and dropped off the State Construction Code Act 125, which you have it in your packet, but there is no recommendation, no background, no motion.
So just clarification, so providing that information is now required when we submit for a agenda item? You want us to give you a recommendation and motion?
Well, again, when,
Because, I know this cover sheets are new, so I just want to make sure, is that something that's in our,
it is not in our rules of
Operating-
procedure, Justin, but as a matter of best practices, and we've learned how effective it is, so that each one of us can come prepared to the meeting, myself included, we need to understand exactly why you want to talk about this item and what it's going to pertain to. Having a code of, this code generated a lot of wasted time and conversation between myself and our building inspector, between you and him, to try and figure out what are you going with here? I don't know why you want to talk about
I don't know if
this.
it was a waste of time, but it was definitely a good conversation to have, because there are situations, so.
Well, it's kind of a waste of time of this board, for sure, to talk about this, because as he will tell you, that this enforcement code is administrative. It's not this body's wheelhouse to,
So instead of reaching out to me ahead of time, you'd rather just put me on the spot now in this manner? I got that. So if we just continue, so basically what this brought in is to talk about what the state enforces and allows us to do is, and it talks about other government bodies having jurisdiction within the village, and make sure that we have the policies and procedures in place, or checklist if you want to go administrative, to make sure that we're getting all the proper sign-offs from municipalities, state, county, health department, before we're offering CMOs.
So did you recommend that to Catherine or anybody, that they should have something that's lacking? You had conversations with them?
No, I did not.
No, you didn't? Okay.
Is there a motion to be made here, or?
Can I speak to that?
Please.
sure.
Okay, as somebody who works very closely with the zoning administrator and the building department and the building director, Mike Marino, in the village offices, nobody in this room, nobody on this board has ever asked us about all these processes that we do have in place. And Mike Marino can attest to it, what new processes have been developed in the last few years that account for residential, commercial, all of our checklists, all of our board packets as far as what we sit through, meetings, pre-con meetings, regular village planner meetings, all of these items have been put into place, but nobody has ever asked us. I don't know why I haven't ever gotten a phone call or a conversation from, all the residents or all the business owners, they're very aware of the process that we do have, and they're very grateful for the process we do have, so there is not any money or permits wasted, everything is discussed up front. I don't understand why nobody else ever had a discussion with us, though, at the village level. This is all taken care of administratively between me, Cindy, and Mike Marino. I don't understand why this is a topic tonight.
Well, I have a question for you.
I don't know why it can't be.
Has a garage door permit been pulled for 315 Dickinson?
I don't have my PSNA chart in front of me to log in.
The accusations that nobody ever
Is there
asked.
board action for this? What
Right,
what-
right.
what
Why are we
happens
wasting our
This is
time
all
with this?
personal and administrative.
I mean, we bring up plenty of things for discussion and
That's
clarification
question.
on the agenda often. So I
Okay.
just want to make sure that we have the processes in place, and I thought it was great to.
So to put that on the board and then bring all this up because you want to know?
Could you just stop talking about how we're wasting your time? If you don't want to be here, the door's there. You bring that up every time I want to discuss something, that's your argument.
All right,
Wasting everybody's time.
okay.
Justin, is there some board action that you want taken regarding this agenda item that you want it to be added? That's all I'm asking. Is
No, I
there
just
some
want
board
to make sure
action?
that we have the processes in place to make sure that we're doing this, because there's been instances, which we don't need to pinpoint or go at anyone individually, that are sliding through. So I wouldn't be bringing it up if there
Are we
wasn't
letting anything
situations.
slide through, Mike?
We don't want nothing to slide through.
Thank you.
Does-
We don't let anything slide through, right?
Sure.
No, we don't let anything slide through once it's brought to our attention. And there's the permit that you're asking about right now.
Yes.
We sent a letter out to that property owner. He
Sent the letter.
called requesting what ordinance, what building codes have I violated? And I was very nice. I called up his secretary. I told her, it's not an ordinance, it's building code. Anybody that intends to alter, construct, repair, so-and-so, you require a building permit. He did, I told him, you cut a whole doorway out. That's structural. You need a permit. Very easy. Come in, give me a drawing of what you did, pull a permit. I'll go out and inspect it. If it approves, we're good.
Thank you.
Behind us. Till now, they haven't, but if they don't, and they've been put on, alert, you need a permit, we'll give them a little bit of time, and
I
they don't.
believe he was in this morning, but I can't
Very
verify that.
possible. I didn't see a drawing for it. Another example of procedure and policy that we're farther now than we've ever been as far as
I know,
getting.
we've talked a lot.
Yes,
I think you're doing a
and-
great job.
Yes.
And-
No, here's one that just came up too, just to let you know that, it's, a permit came in for a building on Sisson. It's across from a bus garage, non-conforming, want to put a simple lien to it, submitted a drawing. I explained to Cindy, this has to go in front of planning and ZBA. It's a non-conforming piece of property for that type of business on that, it's a repair facility. You can't, once it's a commercial site of any type, you're doing a site plan change, it should go to PC. Send them to Steve Cassens, it's non-conforming, he's gonna be going to ZBA now. But I am watching everything that comes in, and as far as, site plan review, we have been watching. The problem is, there's people that'll still go ahead and ask for forgiveness and start a project. And what they're doing, they're hurting themselves, because it's like, continue at your own risk there, because once it was brought to my attention, I have been. And another thing that we put into play this year, well, it's been over a year now, is pre-construction meeting. That's never been done here. And it was very beneficial for the one that's going in with the multifamily on Denby now, because by me having requested that pre-con meeting, it gave our DPW director there a chance to give his concerns, how the water mains are gonna be, brought into that facility, how the sewer is gonna continue on, because there was a disconnection between there and the old nursing home behind there. So, yeah, I'm trying everything I could to keep policies in play.
So to
Yes,
answer
sir.
your question, Justin, and to give Catherine the credit that she's more than overdue of receiving, is that she did bring an entire zoning compliance certification process with her when she took her office. She's the one that insisted that we retain a licensed certified planner, and Mr. Caston has far outweighed what little bit we pay him in retainer and the services that he provides for the village. And Mike can attest to how valuable that process that, again, Catherine is responsible for bringing, because it was never done here in the village before, to make sure that nothing is falling through the cracks. Now, that's not to say that people aren't asking forgiveness after
Right.
they've been caught. Yes, that happens. But we're not overlooking anything in the village and letting anybody slide on anything.
There you go. Sounds
As
like
I
you're doing the
mentioned
job.
before, we're further,
Thank
we're
you.
further ahead now than we ever have
I don't
been.
think I ever attacked either one of you. And Catherine, if you took this as a attack at you, no way, not at all. I just wanted to make sure that we've got everything in place, and you could have called me, we could have discussed prior to this if you felt that I was coming at you, because this by no means is anything. I just want to make sure, because there has been conversations with the county about other things, and situations have been brought up that may be more historic, that have slipped through the cracks. And I just want to make sure, because some of them are still existing issues.
Okay.
And Mike, I think you're aware of that also.
So that's great. We appreciate the fact that you're open to receiving phone calls. And so perhaps the next time, before we just add an agenda item, we can have that conversation so that we're not wasting, again, our time here, because there's no board action that needs to be taken. But I'm glad that we can present to the audience all the steps that we are taking, and so that they can be confident that your village hall is operating in a top-notch manner. Perfect?
And we have it right in front of the reconsider, our next line item, so.
Jason, you have to go up to the microphone.
I just wanted to piggyback off that. Mike, we've never met, but owning 201 North Main, we had some water issues.
Yes.
There's no shortcut, nothing with you guys.
Sorry.
I started with you, Mike was even talking to me on vacation,
Yeah,
walking me
that's
through the
true.
process. Tim, I see, and even the water department was really helpful in it. We filled out what we had to fill out, you guys walked us through it, and, there was no shortcut for these guys.
So they're doing their job.
No, and I know you want to,
I'm not attacking anyone
I'm assuming that at all,
at
but
these tables.
No.
you guys did, you guys helped us out with that and walked us through the process, because owning a historical building, there's extra steps involved in it,
And, yeah, and you wanted, gladly that's gonna work out for you, and it made perfect sense. Not only did we do that, we actually had the fire chief go there
Yeah.
to make sure that he wanted to do was not gonna cause any type of a safety issue, and he had the proper egress still out of that basement. He had a second exit out of there.
Yeah, he took the whole fire truck with him.
Yeah, it's a good thing. But, no, there's, and when Mr. Parker had called me, he wasn't attacking anything that I was doing whatsoever, just asking for procedure. But we are farther now than we have ever been for processing that
Good.
department, so.
Good.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks
Thanks,
for coming
Mike.
out.
Thanks.
I found that very informative, and Catherine, to know that you have taken these steps is a great call on your part, and I understand you don't want to come here and just toot your own horn, so I found that very informative. I didn't know that either, so, thank you.
I'm open to any further discussions or show you on my forms.
Absolutely. Okay, now we're going to go back to item 10D, the reconsideration marijuana license move. Again, this is an agenda item requested by trustee Parker, so I don't have any information to share on where you wanted to go with this, Justin.
So, yeah, to bring it up for reconsideration, obviously, I would like to change my vote based on this, based on information that's been presented, somewhat of the topic we just discussed. One of the license holders has been notorious for not closing out permits with the county and letting things slide through. I mean, we still have a storm drain at the bank that hasn't been closed out with the county, that is just sitting there, which is our infrastructure. Which bank is that? The Tri-County Bank that he built. And then it was also brought to my attention that that was part of the reason why he asked for the transfer, was because he was having trouble obtaining the proper permitting at a at the site on 33 Mile Road because of county. So,
Do you have some documentation of that, or is that just
Hearsay.
hearsay? Yeah.
no, that's through discussion. I mean, we can get that if needed. I mean, the county
That's
permit's
hearsay.
still open.
That's not true.
The county permit's not open for the tri-county
That's not
bank?
the reason for the move, was it because any county issues, which is not true.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Right, so do you have any new
Controversial
information?
as this topic is,
Okay,
I don't want my name anywhere on this transfer, so that's why I'm calling for the reconsideration vote, and we can revote.
okay. Well, is there new information that you want to present other than your own personal opinion?
I wouldn't call it a personal opinion, but kind of what my vote is gonna be based on, I guess, based on all the information that's been presented through the letters that we've received, emails we've received, and knowing that he's notorious for not closing out permits or starting projects without proper permits, started the storm drains out there on 33 without obtaining any permitting.
Then I'm going to make a motion to deny the reconsideration vote at this
I don't
time.
think you can deny a reconsideration vote.
I was about ready to do that.
Yeah.
If there's gonna be a motion to reconsideration, it has to be made by somebody who voted for it. It would have to be supported, then you vote whether you're gonna reconsider. If the reconsideration motion passes, then you can address the underlying substantive action that was taken at the past meeting.
Okay.
So I made the yes vote, so I make the motion to reconsider the transfer.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Parker, we have support by Fowler to have a reconsideration vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
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 Motion
You
fails.
guys can keep your names on it.
I want nothing to do with it.
Okay. All right, item 10E, the video recording contract. This item was added by trustee Poznanski. She did request that the Mid-TV current contract be included, which you have in your packet, but I have no other additional information.
This was put in here, I had a few different phone calls from different people asking, and someone specifically asked me to put this on here, but once I looked at it and seeing that the terms of agreement, this is up here coming on June 30th, so I thought we should look at it, decide what we want to do. We need to go out for bid, RFP, and since it's ending at the end of next month, now would be, well, we could have done it last month, but now would be the time to do that. Get those
When I
steps
saw
going.
Megan's email, I contacted Ruth. She would be willing to extend the contract for another 3 years at 95% of the PEG fees we're collecting. So I'll make a motion to extend the contract for 3 years.
Support?
We extended the contract last time,
Yeah.
Bob. We really need to go out for bid. I don't see, so what if we reconfirm it?
Well, we have a motion on the table by Hart, with support by Bartholomew, to extend the contract for a 3-year period under the current terms. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just questioned if we're doing what's
I
right
was
by the village
speaking.
to continue to extend this contract without putting it out for bid.
Did we not, am I misunderstanding, did we or did we not do that last time? 3 years ago, we did that. We didn't go out for bid, we didn't RFP it, we just extended it. Is that correct?
And at that time, I thought it was discussed that you could do that one time, and then it would have to go back out.
Well, there's no language in here. I don't know.
It's probably changed.
Yeah, well, I think that this service is a unique service. I've been following very closely with Bruce and their contracts, and WBRW made a bid for it, as the Record did in doing the video for doing the meetings. And we've had a history of 7 years since the WBRW was changed. The way I personally look at it, it's kind of like we ended up with our own cable television that is supported by non-tax dollars that comes from the cable. The way that the contract is written, it's scalable, because now it's about $69,000 we get, and it's 95% of that. So next year, if it's 65, it's going to be a percentage of that. So again, it's not coming out of taxpayer dollars. For 7 years, and I know some people really don't care for the owner or the Ruth or any of that, but for 7 years, it's been outstanding what's happening. We had Arbor Day they were on doing everything. Every time there can be a chance to volunteer or promote, that, I will say, Ruth Heidelberg and MIT TV has done that. There are people that would like nothing more than it just to be gone, and I saw that being evident with Bruce, where the record bid, but then told the people on the board, hey, you're probably doing a good thing spending $6,000 and just having your meetings, because they don't want the MIT to be around to be communicating. They don't want that. WBRW doesn't want that to be around. Washington Township pays $270,000 a year to have their WBRW. And
What percentage is that of their?
I don't know, but it's $270,000 for WBRW, and the MIT TV does more, and I think has a larger accent.
And they give money back.
The last thing I just want to say,
For stopping him when I was talking.
the last thing, I was still speaking. The last thing that I'd like to say is, I'm even losing my train. The reason I was an advocate and trying to keep it with Bruce, I was very afraid that if that fell, that Ruth would have said that she wouldn't do that. And about a day or so later, she said she didn't care, she was still going to doing it and funding it. It cost way more than what we're paying, and we get way more for it. So putting it out to bid, there's some people that don't like the MIT. Overwhelmingly, the community has received it very well.
May I have the table?
I can give you the floor.
I think Justin was up next.
I think I was
Sorry.
speaking until I was told to pull up my mic.
Yeah, she was speaking, and then somebody made a motion over top of it.
Okay, well, you guys can, if you're okay to defer to Megan, we'll let Megan have the floor.
Please, sir.
Bob, you are entitled to your opinion, and it is a valid opinion. I respect that. I'm not arguing semantics of good or bad. I'm arguing best practices. We should go out to bid. That is my statement. Go ahead.
Justin, I'm
I was
sorry.
going to say, traditionally, we have always looked at lowest bid, not just who you may like, right? And if we're not going to go out to bid, I think we're doing a disservice to the residents and taxpayers on a lot of different areas. We should be looking at what's best and not just who we like, right? So if someone can do the job as the contract calls for at a lesser price, I don't know why we wouldn't consider it.
What are they doing now? What's WBR, what are these guys doing now for our community? You say it's not about, what's history show us? Because it is kind of about history to me. When I watched the MIT TV for 7 years, give back to the community what they give them, what are some of these other guys that are going to give our community? Because I've personally seen them. I've personally seen the veterans and first responders that the MIT TV have donated behind closed doors that people don't see, right? So $270,000 at WBR, whatever they're charging, what are they giving back to our community? What are they giving back to taxpayers that are in our town, paying the high taxes in the village of Romeo, and giving us a piece of that marketing, right, that's out there that the MIT TV is creating? A video camera's not going to give me as a business owner a value to, right? So what are they giving back? What are they giving to the community?
I can respect what you're saying. So Washington, yes, their chunk of money is a lot larger than ours. So the 200-some thousand, if we don't have a percentage to compare it to the 95 that you say Ruth collects or Mick collects, there's a difference there, right? So, but here's the thing, all that money doesn't have to go towards this service. That money can then stay within the village, and then it can be dispersed elsewhere. So it doesn't have to go to Ruth or WBRW or the Record. It doesn't have to go to them first to come back, right? Because then you're just losing some of that funds in the transition, right? So if we can retain half of those funds, let's say the Record comes in at half of what.
But if,
exactly. So why not go out for bid and see what comes back?
Well, and the intent of this line item was simply, the terms are up June 30th. We need to decide where we're going forward. I don't know why it hasn't been put on before. I mean, if we keep dibs on our contracts and when things are up, I mean, we should have, at the very least, I shouldn't have even needed to put this on at this meeting. It should have already been here.
Anybody comments from the floor? You had your hand up first. Okay. Shelley?
I just want to say,
Yeah.
Ms. Malzahn, everyone has very valid points and everyone has very valid opinions. But as a resident, there are policies, procedures, and best practice in place, and we're looking to you and the council to follow those on a consistent basis so we can trust you. And whether we pick and choose when we want to do those or not, that's not why we have best practice in place. So I'm sure you can understand that the residents are looking to all of you to follow best practice, not necessarily history or opinion.
I appreciate that. Yep, thank you for your comment very much.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you for allowing me to come and speak at your meetings. Usually I'm at the Washington Township meetings, so I'm a Washington resident.
Let's say, what's your name and address?
I'm getting there. A little nervous up here. I'm not like one of y'all.
I understand.
So I'm Washington Township resident. My name is Michelle Milam, and I heard about this little agenda thing coming up, and I was moved to come here because I have been living the living hell of having to pay for the WBRW and not getting the services. You know, I pay for a building. We don't get to use the building. We just get to pay the dimes on the building. When I see as a realtor, what the MIT TV has done for this community, I have people that have relocated, and I've been able to take them minutes. They've came from California, where I could literally direct them to watch what's going on with our local businesses here. I had a really cool, moving thing happen to me at a bowling alley 2 weeks ago. A lady made the most beautiful birthday cake for her son, and I said, "Oh my goodness, that cake is beautiful. How many years have you been doing it?" She says, "Oh, I had to learn how to make these cakes during COVID." And I said to her, "Well, where do you live?" She says, "I live in the village." And I said, "Have you ever heard of the MIT TV?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "You know what? That's a story. That's a good story. The MIT would love to put that out there. You know, here's this woman. She's now making an income, making these birthday cakes." And you know what Ruth did? I called her up. I said, "Hey, Ruth, this is a story." She said, "Let's get over there and tell that story." I never see bad news come from the MIT. I've been slammed in that record. I've had my name slattered. I've had to sue people because of it, because the record is political. Some of these other things are political. No matter what Ruth feels about a person, you'll never know it by hearing the MIT. Every single person has been welcome to the MIT. I've seen people that I know in my heart of hearts Ruth doesn't care for. I've watched her interview them with grace and a smile on her face. I've seen businesses thrive because of it, and I think she even pays rent to downtown and brought the building here, all because of her love. When Arbor Day came, there was 500 seedlings. She spent 3 weeks putting those seedlings in packets and giving those seedlings away on her own dime. She gives more from her pocket than anybody can imagine. The money she takes in is moot. As far as putting it out to contract, I can understand that from a government, and I watched Bruce Township put it out, and at the end of the day, they still were going to go with the MIT, but then decided to record on their own. It was a shocking blow, but you know what she did the next morning? She still covered their farmer talk. She didn't have to. She woke up and she said, "You know what? It's my honor to help the community. I'm still going to go." And she said to me, "That was the best day ever to be with those farmers that day. That's what I needed," because those are people that got it handed to them before due to weather, due to times, but they never gave up. And she says, "I'm not going to give up." She says, "Whether I get a contract or not, I'm not going to walk away from the village." She said, "I'll just have to use more of my own fundraising and more ways to figure it out." She gives more than she gets. And I know we all know that. I've seen that Facebook page that all they do is talk about her. And one day I said, "You know what? How about you look at what you could contribute? How can you help? You don't have to have money to be able to help." And you know that one person said to me, she said, "I appreciated your view." She was very nice to me. She wasn't mean. I feel like if we all talk about things like this openly, how we can get along and make this MIT a part of Romeo forever, we're going to benefit tenfold. Like I said, it came down to being a realtor, having businesses reach out and sending them out when you're looking for a house. "Hey, look at what we have. We have something special, a gem here that no one else has." So I just want to ask the board to think about that. Are we more proud of the way things have been going with the MIT? Are we prouder of where we live as a result? I know I am. I know I don't want to go back pre-MIT because it wasn't fun. It's been fun since MIT. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Chris Rose, Record Newspapers. I don't think you have a choice not to bid it out, because according to Ordinance 531, Section 202-401, Purchase of Professional Services, it states, "Requests for proposals, RFPs, shall be solicited for all professional service contracts. For professional service contracts involving services to the village on an ongoing basis, RFPs shall be solicited every 5 years." There you go. So I would recommend that you bid it out.
appreciate that. Any other comments from the audience?
Thank you.
I would like to know, Mr. Rose, what would you do to help and secure the type of business we're used to?
That's not on the floor right now.
Well, you said you
Thank
wanted
you.
to talk about this.
Any other board discussion? Otherwise, did you, yeah.
Hi, Elizabeth Miller. I'm a resident taxpayer, DDA director. If I had 3 hats in front of me, I would put them all on, but that's really confusing. So tonight I'm here representing myself as the director for the Downtown Development Authority. And in the master plan that I mentioned earlier, there's several aspects on our table 1 on page 16 that addresses some of the things that the MIT-TV provides. And one of the things that I do as the executive director for the Downtown Development Authority is, and to Megan's point earlier, in talking about the, are you giving your businesses in town first rights to providing services at an event and whatnot. And if the Met TV wasn't in the Central Business District, I probably wouldn't be standing at this podium, possibly jeopardizing my job, I don't know. But it is a business in the Central Business District. They do pay taxes that go towards our millage into the budget that you all just approved, so thank you for that. I was at the budget workshop that you had a few weeks ago. In fact, my accountant and I were the only ones sitting in the audience, actually, besides the accountant, so that was interesting. I thought you guys had a really amicable conversation and whatnot. But back to the topic at hand, as far as the DDA is concerned, one of the things that I'm tracking in my time on the job at only 7.5 months is what kind of in-kind donations are we getting? Not just monetary, not just ones that you can, add to the balance sheet, is what else are we getting? And my accountant and I, and actually along with my intern, we're keeping track of that. What are the other things that we're getting as a downtown development authority that we're not seeing in the budget process, things that are being given? And that is something actually, through Winterfest, the billboard right on Van Dyke, offering that, like, hey, we could put that on the billboard. And then they made a mistake. The billboard company made, and most of you might not know this, so I'll share this briefly. The billboard company made a mistake. They left one of our sponsors off. And Ms. Heidelbright brought that to their attention. They were like, well, we don't know. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really work. You can't just say, oh, whoops. And so what they did in exchange is they said, well, we can't change it, because if we change it, it's going to take 2 weeks. And if we change it in 2 weeks, well, Winterfest would have already happened. So it sort of doesn't make sense, right? And they said, well, how about as an in-kind thing, how about we stick it up on M53? They stuck it up on the electronic billboard on M53, if you all have seen that. On M53, do you know that alone, by having that on there, gave us an additional $5,000 in donations, not in kind, actual money into the DDA fund. So that was it's just those things that happened, and so I guess I'm in connection with the DDA's master plan and us giving, to Megan's point, are you giving any, who are you, connecting with in your DDA district, making sure that those businesses have an opportunity to thrive. Should you, whatever you all decide to do, that's fine. I'm just speaking from the perspective of it is a business in the Central Business District that is very supportive of the DDA and other businesses within the community, and it is a service that is valuable. However you decide to move forward, I completely understand, but I want to let you know how much the DDA appreciates it. So thank you.
Elizabeth, has the DDA then considered funding some of this stuff the MID is doing? If it's to benefit the downtown, the DDA zone, wouldn't those funds better come out of the DDA then? To fund the MID for those projects? Because I think we're just considering the video recording contract.
No, these things this has nothing to do with that. This is all actually done gratis. This isn't, there's no payment that's expected by any of that, by any means, from the MIT TV specifically. They're not looking for any payment. It's done as an in-kind donation.
Well, I mean, I can respect that, but you were talking about everything that they're doing in the DDA. I think you were questioning what everyone else can give back to the businesses. And I thought that was one of the main reasons for the DDA, right? So.
Okay, let me speak to this.
I'm just trying to
sure.
clarify, because we're just talking about the video recording contract, not what the MID does outside of that.
Right, well, okay, that's a good point. So to that, and since you asked that question, am I allowed to speak to that?
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Oh, no, I'm not going to take 5 minutes because I got to get home. So to that, you know, in the past, some events have happened that have cost residents no money, right? The businesses donate everything. And there's a lot, people, there's a misconception that the businesses in downtown are just dripping with money. They can pay for everything, right? It's not true. There are some businesses that have huge profit margins, but there's a majority of the businesses that have very narrow profit margins. So when people come in and say, hey, could you donate to the Boy Scouts? Could you donate to the seniors? Could you donate to this? They're taxed excessively. So when we create events,
That's
you know,
why many of the businesses couldn't afford the snowman. $600 for a snowman was not going to happen for them.
sure, and that's a topic for another time. I mean, we're not talking about the snowman at the moment. We're talking about what some of the donations and things that people have done. So what people have done currently is when we've done some events and we've asked, you know, I went and bought gift certificates or whatnot, they expected that I wanted that as a donation. I'm like, no, I don't expect, well, wait, we're going to go to this event. Are we charging? I said, absolutely you're charging for your food. You made that food. Yes, you should be making money off of that. The businesses are there to thrive and make money. We as residents, because I am a resident, we don't keep the businesses downtown alive. Do you guys realize that? It is not the local residents that keep these downtown businesses alive. It is people coming into the village. So my point in saying this, regardless of how you all decide to vote, and regardless of whether I have a job tomorrow or not, I don't know. But the MID is providing things additional above and beyond the contract, and that's important. Just like Four Corners Diner, just like Shaner Roofing, just like Town Hall. I could go on and on and on. The other things that companies do in the village, but they can't be taxed to the point to where they literally go out of business because they're giving so much away. So that's all I have to say.
And I feel like we're fighting a fight that we're not even asking to fight right now. I'm simply asking us to decide where we want to go forward. This contract is due to expire here, and we need to get our ducks in order so that by the time it expires, we have it all done.
Yeah, if I can say one more thing, too, how this evolved was when we had WBRW, and I was fighting to try to keep both of those together, you know, keep the community and all that together, and then it ended up being Washington, and we became a customer, and we were through the whole thing where the pressure that they were going to be doing our meetings, and then they said they would do Peach Festival, but if we wanted them to do other things that weren't in line, you know, what they were doing, we would be paying as we go. So I look at this as more than just doing the meetings. And matter of fact, all the equipment, all the stuff, if we need something, it just happens. This is a replacement of what WBRW is in the other communities, in my opinion. It is much bigger than just doing the meetings. It's all the other ancillary things that happen from that, and it's paid from the cable fund. So to just boil it down, and I just want to, again, and I guess they could rebid if we had to go that way, but the record was going to do 22 meetings for Bruce at $38,600. Just doing the meetings, 22. $195 an hour for anything over 2.5 hours, and our meetings sometimes go over that. So it was that. But that was just doing those meetings, not any other of the community kind of stuff. Bruce's bid for doing the meetings.
Discussing the bids or who's
No,
doing what.
I'm just talking about.
We're just discussing going back out
Right,
for bid.
for bid, and I'm just, okay, what my point is, going out to bid, this is who's going to be bidding. There's not going to be other that are going to be bidding. So it's WBRW, it would be the record, and WBRW was $60,000, and we do more meetings than
Are
Bruce.
you opposed to following the best practices and going?
No, if we have to.
We go for bid on legal, we go for bid on other things.
If it's gonna be a lawsuit because we haven't been out 5 years, then let them bid it out, and I'll have this conversation on who we should go with in a month. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that.
Wait.
I think we should bid it out.
First of all, I believe there's a motion on the floor.
There is.
Mr. Hart made a motion supported by Mr. Bartholomew to extend it for 3 years. So that's where you are procedurally.
Correct.
With respect to what I was handed, you have an ordinance that said requests for proposals shall be solicited for all professional service contracts. So the question becomes, is this a professional service contract? I mean, that's really the question. And if it is, then you put it out for bids. If you say, well, no, it's not, then you don't, and somebody can challenge it and say, well, yes, it is. I don't want to be silly about this. If it was, you see these businesses around, it might be different businesses, I'm not sure, a man in a truck or a good guy in a truck. Well, what if it was a good guy with a camera? Would you consider that a professional service? I don't know. I don't know whether this, your video taping and the broadcast of your meetings, whether it's a professional service. It sounds like it to me, but if you say, nah, it's not really a professional service, then you're not bound by this ordinance. And that's the question. It's really a factual question. Is it a professional service? Seems like it to me, but you get to decide that. If you say it is, then you have to put it out for bids. If you say, no, it's not, then you act according to the motion. You vote on the motion and see what happens.
But we are not trying to procure another service. This is an existing contract, much like HRC. We have never bid out our engineering services, ever. Well, I shouldn't say ever. In the last 12 years that I've been involved in this, that contracted service has never been bid out.
Should we then, based on that, if
We
we
had-
consider that a professional service?
We have the ability built into the contract, as we do to our other contracts, to go month to month, to extend it, as Bob's motion has said, or to go out for RFP to solicit new bids.
Can you point that out in the contract, because I didn't see it?
Because when you go back and
I
watch
believe
the
it's in the
video, that-
original contract,
Well, that's not what we're beholden to. We're beholden to this most current contract.
which ties into the first contract as well.
When this was discussed before I was elected, you clearly stated that you could extend it the one time based on the timing, and then it had to go back out for bid. Your words exactly.
Well, I don't have that right in front of me, so thanks for jogging my memory on that, but we do have a motion on the floor by Hart. We have support by Bartholomew. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to call a roll, please.
Could you re-say the motion?
To extend the contract for 3 years, that was his motion.
So we're not considering this a professional service, is that what we're saying?
I don't think anybody's debating whether it's a professional service or not. What I'm suggesting is that we're not procuring. We already have this as a service.
I don't think that's how the language goes, though.
Mark, could you speak on that, please?
Well, if it's a professional service, under the terms of your ordinance, you're required to put it out for bids. You have to, I guess, give some consideration to what you do. As Mrs. Malzahn said, I don't believe you've bid out the engineering services in quite some time. You may have, I don't know, but I don't think so. But you have other services. I've bid on the legal services. You put your auditing services out for bid. In fact, you changed auditors based on the bid that you received. So, again, you have to decide if you think it's a professional service. As I said, I believe it sounds like one to me, but if you say, no, it's not, well, then you vote on the motion.
Yeah,
Well, and if that's the case, and that's how we want to do
I'd
it,
like to
then why would
rescind
we
my
continue to
motion.
put a termination date on
I'll
this?
rescind the motion and let the other companies go ahead and put out a bid, and we'll revisit this in a month. And, you know, I'm not going to have the record sit there and
I would support
have a
that motion.
lawsuit, and he can do that, and we do that. So I rescind my motion.
Okay.
What about the support? I mean,
Well, I'll rescind as well then.
Okay.
And then did you also,
And let
it
'em-
sounded
let 'em
like you
bid.
also made a
Let 'em
motion
bid.
at the same time.
That's the safest way.
I'm sorry?
It sounded like he also then made a motion at the same time.
Pardon?
Can you repeat?
Am I understanding?
Who?
What is?
Did you make a motion
I
for
want
me
to
to
know
go
if you
and
made
bid
another
then?
motion.
And that's what I'm saying. I would
Yes, I'll
second
make
that.
a motion that we'll put out for bid, and we'll address it at the next meeting.
And I would second that.
Well, if I could just interject, I know that's your motion,
Yeah.
but it's going to take a bit longer than that to draft an RFP, to put it out for proposals and get those put in. So since the contract
Then I'll
expires,
extend it for 30, another, do it
Month to
60
month?
days.
to, yes.
We'll
To
make it
just to
60
extend
days.
the contract to month until the bids
Yes.
come in and the contract is
Thank you.
awarded.
I'm a little bit
Okay, I
emotional.
just want to, okay, so to clarify, we have a motion on the table by Hart to issue an RFP for video recording services and extend the current contract month to month until those bids are received.
Yep.
So
Yep,
that's your
my
motion.
Thank you.
I'll support
Support by
that.
Bartholomew.
No, I supported it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's why I was asking, it sounded like he said a
Oh.
motion at the same time.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure I was seconding it in case I needed to make the first.
Okay.
Okay, but so before we vote, I just want to make one more comment.
Uh-huh.
So we just decided to continue on with our sidewalk contractor, which technically it's a professional service. But I think we all realize that nobody else wants to do the sidewalks, so we're blessed to have him. It's tedious work, it's not, but he's willing to do it, and we didn't put that out to bid, but we want to continue with him because he's doing a good job. The way I feel about Mitt is that the amount of money that business donates back to the community and everything else that's involved, that's the reason I would want to continue with them. So that's all I have to say.
Fabulous. Bring that back next month when we bring back the
We'll take
RFP.
care of
We're
it.
not there
We'll
yet.
take care of it.
I'm sure you will.
Yep, and it sounds like
Like
the
you always
record
do.
wants to sue the village if we don't, so.
Okay.
Okay,
So
the next item
all
was
in-
in-
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
let
go
me
ahead.
call, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? I oppose. Okay.
Megan, is this gonna be long? Should we look at extending if needed?
I don't know. I don't think so, but
Okay.
we'll see.
Again, this is the last agenda item, minutes. Again, asked by trustee Poznanski to put on the agenda. I have no information, so I'm not sure what you want to talk about. Again, is there a board action that needs to be taken, or is this just up for discussion?
So what I would like to consider is specifically the special meeting minutes from the February 7th closed session. Nothing was included because I can't include things in closed session for the public at the time, and I don't want to do this at closed session unless the board decides we need to go into closed session. At that time, well, let's see, February, so the March meeting, I mentioned that I believed an OMA violation happened, and I contacted the Attorney General's office. Since that time, and looking into things, it has come to light. I'm of the understanding that we could just take care of this ourselves without having to go down that road. I do not wish to call the police on my neighbors and my friends and people in this room. That is not what I would like to do. So if there's another option, which it was presented that there is, I would like to go after that. I do not, at any point, want it to be thought that I was part of an OMA violation, and in a closed session, we must police ourselves. And so the fact that I do believe one happened, I brought it to light. I'm sorry if that aggravates people. So my suggestion for the motion is that we make these minutes from that special meeting public, therefore taking care of the issue. That's my motion.
As far as discussion goes, I have no idea what those minutes say, right? Without anything in front of me, how could I possibly go back to vote on something that I have no ability to make a decision right now?
We all approve them.
Well, until this very
So
moment,
whether they should be
On that-
public, we
on that
didn't approve them to be
agenda- On that
public.
agenda, going into closed session, was for property acquisitions.
Again, I don't know what the minutes
You weren't
reflect.
that was the meeting you missed. That's what it
That's
was.
correct.
That's why you don't recall. You were not feeling well. That was the one that Matt chaired.
No, Fowler.
So if it does jog anyone's memory, something that I thought of over time, that maybe nobody else on this board quite knew, following that meeting was a DDA meeting. I was still there, because I am part of the DDA. And at that meeting, in that public meeting, it was stated by a board member asking about specific property acquisitions, kind of weighing how can we go forward with X if we're not sure about Y? And the reply was, there is no movement there. And that was in regards to property acquisitions. So I'm kind of strapped at what I can and can't say right now is to also violate the OMA.
For clarification, it was a closed session, and she's tiptoeing around because there's certain things we cannot discuss openly at this point. So I guess maybe we should refer to Mark, and should this be something that we go into closed session to discuss at a later date?
Well, but
making
in
these
order to
minutes
make the
public.
motion, it needed to be in public. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked for this to be here, because you cannot make motions in closed session.
Because we actually corrected it during the meeting. You said something during the meeting, and we stopped what was happening. That should have been the end of it. There wasn't any egregious thing that you had to go forward with. Can't we just let it go? I mean, just let it go.
Well, there's a
Because
motion.
it happened. So how do you just let it go?
Somebody said, I mean, you make it public.
Well, we have a motion on the floor.
I think you discussed making
We
other
had
things in
support by Fowler
that same meeting
to make the
public.
minutes public.
That would
I'd
take
say
care of
we
the
just-
issue.
Any other discussion?
Mark, do you have any input? Should this be something that's discussed and closed and then
Well, if you're
readdressed and
gonna,
open?
if you're going to discuss the subject matter that was in closed session, you should go into closed session. If you're going to vote on whether to make the minutes of that closed session public, you need to do that in public. You can discuss that in closed session, but you cannot take action on that. So if you simply want to vote on the motion, you can do that.
Did you have a question or?
Didn't we already discuss those minutes in a closed session after that meeting? I remember there was another closed session minutes where closed session minutes were discussed.
No,
been a while.
right, I think we corrected closed session minutes, but that was from a different meeting.
I think it was, someone wasn't there that showed
Yes.
was there.
Okay,
I think that's
I know
what, in a
something
closed
was
session, I think it
brought
showed
back
that,
up.
I think Zach had missed a meeting.
Okay, so
I
that
think
was
that's
the
what
topic.
that was discussion was about.
Okay.
We went into closed just to change that, that he, yeah, I can't.
Got it.
So I just wanted to call the roll because I don't know what else to do. I mean, I don't have the minutes to know even what they say in front of me, so I can't, well, I'll vote no when the time comes, but I don't know how everybody else is going to vote on something they don't have in front of us, or even the date to reference in our packets before this meeting.
Well, I couldn't
would have
provide
been
you with
helpful.
something that I don't have. We don't
we don't
retain
have
Well,
those closed
if
session
you
minutes.
had just told us that you were referencing the closed session of February 7th, everybody could
I
have
was
at
given
least-
a hard time just asking for the video contract to be put in there. I can't imagine what would have happened if I would have asked for that.
We were following policy for that.
That's just why it's, if you're going to add an agenda item, as much motion, as much information is needed so that we can all come prepared. So, we have a motion on the floor by Poznanski, we have support by Fowler, to make the minutes from the February 7th closed session meeting part of the public record. Is that correct?
Correct.
Would you be more comfortable, Christine, if we added this to, or Megan added it to, I have nothing to do with it, I'm just discussing as the board, as we added this to next month, closed session for discussion?
I'm ready to vote on this motion.
Yeah, the motion on the table, so unless you're going to rescind it, I'm just going to say all in favor. Any opposed? I opposed.
I oppose.
So, continue with. Motion to adjourn?
No, I do not wish to call the police on fellow, and so that if the board comes to this quantitative decision that nothing was violated, then we will have to go with the majority of the board. I just want it noted on the record that I do believe we violated something, and I do not wish to be a part of that at all.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn by, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's 9:47. Meeting adjourned.